तो दर्शकों, हम पुनः प्रस्तुत हैं आपके सम्मुख ओरिजिन ऑफ टू नेशन थ्योरी का सेकंड पार्ट लेते हुए, द रोल ऑफ सैयद अहमद खान एंड द अलीगढ़ मूवमेंट। तो इसमें जो है हम आगे देखेंगे कि ये टू नेशन थ्योरी का ओरिजिन कैसे हुआ, उस पर्टिकुलर सब्जेक्ट पे है ये। और मैं सबसे पहले स्वागत करता हूँ एम दादा का। एम दादा,
जी,
चांस
बहुत
पर।
बहुत धन्यवाद, बहुत बहुत आभार और ढेर सारे आशीर्वाद हमारे तरफ से। और मुझे जोड़ने के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद भी। दर्शकों को भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। नमस्कार
जी, तो अपने बड़े बुजुर्ग हैं उनको जोड़ेंगे कैसे, नहीं उनका आशीर्वाद मिले बिना काम कैसे चलेगा। तो हम बिना समय व्यर्थ करे हुए सीधा चलते हैं टॉपिक की ओर, और मैं वीबी दादा से, एएम दादा से रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि इसका शुभारंभ करें।
जी। The two nation theory. Contrary to what some would have us believe, this much is clear from the journey of Syed Ahmed Khan that the two nation theory was not the product of a sudden disillusionment with the Hindu majority Indian National Congress, which was founded in 1885. It was present all along, as reflected in Khan's own earliest writings in 1847, in which he openly expressed support for the Wahhabis. Even in his book, Causes of the Indian Revolt, which was originally published in Urdu in 1858, he referred to Hindus and Muslims as two antagonistic races when highlighting the British folly of bringing them together in a single unit, thereby endangering the British position. Here's a relevant extract from Graham's book, where he quotes Khan from the latter's book. The English army system in India has always been faulty, and one great fault was the paucity of English troops. When Nadir Shah conquered Khorasan and became master of the two kingdoms of Persia and Afghanistan, he invariably kept the two armies at equal strength. The one consisted, or rather was composed, of Persian and Quzulbashis, and the other was composed of Afghans. When the Persian army attempted to rise, the Afghan army was at hand to quell the rebellion and vice versa. The English did not follow this precedent in India. The Sepoy army was no doubt faithful in its day and served the government well. But how could government feel certain that it would never act contrary to its orders? What measures had the government taken for quelling at once on the spot any emeute in that vast army, such as that which happened last year? Government certainly did not put the two antagonistic races into the same regiment, but constant intercourse had done its work, and the two races in regiment had almost become one. It is but natural and to be expected that a feeling of friendship and brotherhood must spring up between the men of a regiment, constantly brought together as they are. They consider themselves as one body, and thus it was that the difference which exists between Hindus and Mohammedans had, in these regiments, been almost entirely smoothed away. If a portion of the regiment engaged in anything, all the rest joined. If separate regiments of Hindus and separate regiments of Mohammedans had been raised, this feeling of brotherhood could not have arisen, and in my opinion, the Mohammedan regiments would not have refused to receive the new cartridges. Not only did Khan subscribe to the view that the communities were two different and antagonistic races or nations, he also wanted the British to keep them apart in order to preserve the latter's control over Bharat. Again in 1867, when a debate arose as to whether Hindi or Urdu should be used in the vernacular universities being set up and for administrative purposes, which snowballed into the Urdu movement, Khan was reported to have told the Commissioner of Banaras that Hindus and Muslims were two nations, and even spoke of the separate political evolution of Muslims. In fact, deposing before the Commission on Indian Education, helmed by W. W. Hunter, Khan is reported were passionately argued that Urdu was the language of gentry and of people of high school standing, whereas Hindi was to be the vulgar. Khan was of the view that the replacement of Urdu by Hindi would reinforce the loss of Muslim authority over Bharat, which led him to advocate Urdu as a symbol of Muslim heritage. He was supported in this position by Muslims across the board, including his opponents from within the Muslim community, leading to the foundation of organizations such as the Urdu Defense Association and the Anjuman Tarakki Urdu. This was yet another clear manifestation of the two-nation theory, which would significantly contribute towards the crystallization of Pakistan once the cause was adopted by the All India Muslim League. According to M.S. Jain, the two-nation theory also manifested itself in the second-class treatment of Hindu students in the Aligarh College, which was justified by the college administration on the grounds that 1. Hindu and Muslim unity was a farce. 2. The college was primarily meant to attract Muslims. 3. Hindus had no basis to expect education from the Mohammedan college or equal treatment, and those that were admitted were being accommodated owing to the help received from Hindus for the founding of the college. The author writes, I must clarify that in my view it makes very little sense to vilify either Syed Ahmed Khan or the institutions he founded for their views on the non-Muslims and their treatment of them, since the stated object of founding such institutions was uplift of a particular community and restoration of its former states as rulers of Hindustan. The blame must be laid at the door of those Hindus who wallowed in notions of unity to such an extent that they were open to their children being educated in such institutions. Clearly, Western education had not dulled the conviction or clarity of the purpose of Middle Eastern consciousness, while the same cannot be said of the Indic consciousness, which refused to and still refuses to accept realities for what they were and are. Even according to Majumdar, this is R.C. Majumdar, the two-nation theory formed the solid basis of the Aligarh movement. He believed that the very conception of the movement was communal in nature, and that while it regenerated the Muslim community politically and socially, it widened the political cleavage between the Hindus and the Muslims and created a distinct Muslim unit in Indian politics. Majumdar identified the following 4 fundamental principles of the movement, which form the very basis of the two-nation theory, in my opinion. In my opinion means in the author's opinion. 1. Hindus and Muslims form 2 separate political entities with separate outlooks and conflicting interests. 2. The grant of representative institutions based on democratic principles and appointment to high offices by open competitive examination in India would be detrimental to the interests of the Muslims, as they would be subject to Hindu domination, which is far worse than British rule. अच्छा, इन माय ओपिनियन मतलब सैयद अहमद खान के ओपिनियन में बता रहा ना.
एक मिनट दादा,
ऊपर जो है इन माय ओपिनियन 70 लिखा हुआ है, 20 लिखा हुआ है ना कि 70 है, सॉरी 70.
ये शायद मजूमदार जी अपने हिसाब से बता रहे हैं. अच्छा, अपने ओपिनियन.
अच्छा, जी. 3. Muslims should regard the paramountcy of the British as the chief safeguard of their interests and keep themselves aloof from political agitation against the government. 4. As Muslim interests are quite safe in the hands of the British, they should confine their attention to cultural development and avoid politics except insofar as necessary to counterbalance the mischief of Hindu political agitators. Majumdar supported his identification of these guiding principles of the Aligarh movement by citing specific instances revealing Syed Ahmed Khan's opposition to treatment of Hindus and Muslims as a single nation. For instance, in 1883, Khan expressed detailed and vehement opposition to the introduction of representative institutions on the basis of simple elections, since he felt that the larger community would totally override the interests of the smaller community. In other words, the dangers of a Hindu majoritarian democracy, of which we hear so often these days, were being aired by Syed Ahmed Khan in his time. Evidently, his issue was not with democracy, but with a Hindu majority democracy, since his Dalawite worldview would not tolerate the specter of Muslims living in a Bharat where Hindus wielded power. Ironically, as seen earlier, Khan was comfortable taking the position that Bharat was Darul Islam, or at least Darul Aman, under the British, so long as Muslim religious freedom was not interfered with. But the very same concession was not to be extended to the Hindus. This is because he believed that Muslims and Christians had shared religious beliefs, being people of the book or Ahl al-Kitab, unlike Hindus. Also, how could the former rulers live under the former Kafir dhimmis? In my view, this is at the heart of present-day Bharat's so-called majority-minority debate, which unfortunately cannot be pointed out without inviting all sorts of pejorative labels. So long as Hindus continue to be a majority in Bharat, it is inevitable that Syed Ahmed Khan's two-nation theory will be pushed under the garb of opposition to Hindu majoritarianism and minority oppression. As pointed out in the first book, this is a textbook case of Middle Eastern consciousness riding on the coattails of European coloniality by pushing its own agenda under the garb of protection of minorities in the Hindu majority state. It is important to note that the above-mentioned views of Syed Ahmed Khan on larger, smaller, and majority-minority communities were expressed 2 years before the Indian National Congress was established in 1885. Also, since his views were in line with his previous position on the need to restore Muslim rule in Bharat, the founding of the Congress only gave him additional reason to build further on his two-nation theory. Here are a few extracts from his speech, vehemently opposing the Congress and expressly hinting at the possibility of revival of physical jihad if Muslims of the subcontinent were expected to live under a Hindu majority government held by the Congress. In a country like India, where homogeneity does not exist in any one of the fields, that is, nationality, religion, ways of living, customs, mores, culture, and historical traditions, the introduction of representative government cannot produce any beneficial results. It can only result in interfering with the peace and prosperity of the land. The aims and objects of the Indian National Congress are based upon an ignorance of history and present-day realities. They do not take into consideration that India is inhabited by different nationalities. I consider the which the Indian National Congress wants to make fraught with dangers and suffering for all the nationalities of India, especially for the Muslims. The Muslims are in a minority, but they are a highly united minority. At least traditionally, they are prone to take the sword in hand when the majority oppresses them. If this happens, it will bring about disasters greater than the ones which came in the wake of the happenings of 1857. The Congress cannot rationally prove its claim to represent the opinions, ideals, and aspirations of the Muslims. In 1886, in response to the founding of the Congress, Syed Ahmed Khan founded the annual Muslim Mohammedan Educational Conference, meetings of which would be held annually in different places to coincide with the Congress's annual.
जी दादा, ये तो कांग्रेस के बनने से पहले ये चीजें क्लियर हो गई थी।
जी आज भी यही चीज चल रहा है, लेकिन लोग सबक नहीं ले पा रहे हैं. Sessions. Congress's annual sessions. The objective of the conference was to cover the whole of Upper India with a network of societies, committees, and individuals, all working harmoniously in the great cause, so that a big evil might be dealt with by a strong remedy, and by the vigorous work of one generation, the tide of misfortune may be turned and the Mohammedan nation may be set moving on the tide of progress abreast of all the other nations of India. In order to demonstrate that I'm not reading more into his views than warranted, here are a few more instances where Khan articulated his two-nation theory with clarity, truly leaving nothing to the imagination. In November 1887, he wrote in The Pioneer that the parliamentary form of government was unsuited to a country containing two or more nations tending to oppress the numerically weaker. On the eve of the Congress annual session in Madras on 18th of December 1887, Khan addressed his co-religionists in Lucknow at an event organized by the Mohammedan Educational Conference. Here are a few relevant extracts from his speech, which showcase his Delhi-white worldview and whose tone and tenor find resonance in the speeches of a few present-day leaders who subscribe to Khan's worldview. Khan says, "Gentlemen, I am not given to speaking on politics, and I do not recollect having ever previously given a political lecture. My attention has always been directed towards the education of my brother Mohammedans, for whom education I anticipate much benefit for my people, for Hindustan, and for the government. But at the present time, circumstances have arisen which make it necessary for me, I think, to tell my brother Musalmans clearly what my opinions are. The object, gentlemen, of this lecture is to explain the attitude which the Mohammedan community ought to adopt with regard to the political movements of the time. I am not going to give a philosophical discourse, nor to speak of those abstract questions on political economy which would require many lectures fully to deal with. But I am simply going to express my opinions in a plain and straightforward manner, leaving it to everyone who hears me to agree with me or differ from me. The reasons why I stand here to address you today is because there has grown up in India a political agitation, and it is necessary to determine what action should be taken by the Mohammedan community with regard to it. Although my own thoughts and desires are towards my own community, yet I shall discuss whether or not this agitation is useful for the country and for the other nations who live in it. ये जातियों को नेशन बता रहा है sorry if it be useful, we must follow it, but if dangerous for the country or our nation, we must hold aloof. There is no another great duty of the government, that is, that in whatever country government establishes its dominion, that dominion should be made strong, firm, and secure. I believe that if any of my friends were made viceroy, he would be loyal to Her Majesty, the Queen Empress of India, as is our present viceroy, Lord Dufferin. And his first duty would be to see that the empire of Her Majesty were made so firm that no enemy, external or internal, could shake it. If it were my fortune to be a viceroy, I speak from my heart when I say I would not be equally, but more anxious to see the rule of the Queen placed on a firm basis. It is the first principle of empire that it is the supreme duty of everyone, whether Hindustani or Englishman, in whose power it rests, to do what he can to strengthen the government of Her Majesty the Queen. The second duty of government is to preserve peace, to give personal freedom, to protect life and property, to punish criminals, and to decide civil disputes. Now everyone will admit that government completely fulfills its duty in this respect. Leave this a moment and consider what are the conditions which make the introduction into a country of competitive examinations expedient, and then see whether our own country is ready for it or not. It is no difficult question of political economy. Everyone can understand that the first condition for the introduction of competitive exams into a country is that all the people in that country, from the highest to the lowest, should belong to one nation. In such a country, no particular difficulties are likely to arise. The second case is that of a country in which there are two nationalities, which have become so united as to be practically one nation. England and Scotland are a case in point. In the past, many wars were waged against those countries, and many acts of bravery were done on both sides. But those times have gone, and they are now like one nation. But this is not the case with our country, which is peopled with different nations. Consider the Hindus alone. The Hindus of a province, the Bengalis of the east, and the Marathas of the Deccan do not form one nation. If, in your opinion, the peoples of India do not form one nation, then no doubt competitive examination may be introduced. But if this be not so, then competitive examination is not suited to the country. The third is that of a country in which there are different nationalities which are on an equal footing as regards the competition, whether they take advantage of it or not. Now I ask you, have Mohammedans attained to such a position as regards high English education, which is necessary for high appointments, as to put them on a level with Hindus or not? Most certainly not. Now I take Mohammedans and the Hindus of a province together and ask whether they are able to compete with the Bengalis or not. Most certainly not. When this is the case, how can competitive examination be introduced in our country? Think for a moment, what would be the result if all appointments were given by competitive examination over all races, not only over Mohammedans, but over Rajas of high position and the brave Rajputs who have not forgotten the swords of their ancestors would be placed as ruler, would be placed as ruler Bengali who at sight of a table knife would crawl under his chair. There would remain no part of the country in which we should see at the tables of justice and authority any face except those of Bengalis. I am delighted to see the Bengalis making progress, but the question is, what would be the result on the administration of the country? Do you think that the Rajput and the fiery Pathan, who are not afraid of being hanged or of encountering the swords of the police or the bayonets of the army, could remain in peace under the Bengalis? This would be the outcome of the proposal if accepted. Therefore, if any of you, men of good position, raises men of the middle class, men of the noble family to whom God has given sentiments of honor, if you accept that the country should groan under the yoke of Bengali rule, and his people lick the Bengali shoes, then in the name of God, jump into the train, sit down, and be off to Madras. Be off to Madras. But if you think that the prosperity and honor of the country would be ruined, then brothers, sit in your houses, inform government of your circumstances, and bring your wants to its notice in a calm and courteous manner. The second demand of the National Congress is that people should elect a section of the Viceroy's Council. They want to copy the English House of Lords and the House of Commons. The elected members are to be like members of the House of Commons, the appointed members like the House of Lords. Now let us suppose the Viceroy Council to be made in this manner, and let us suppose first of all that we have universal suffrage as in America, and that everybody, chamars and all, have votes. And suppose that all the Mohammedan electors vote for a Mohammedan member and all Hindu electors for a Hindu member, and now count how many votes the Mohammedan members have and how many the Hindu. It is certain that the Hindu members will have 4 times as many because their populations is 4 times as numerous. Therefore, we can prove by mathematics that there will be 4 votes for the Hindu to every 1 vote for the Mohammedan. And now, how can the Mohammedan guard his interests? It would be like a game of dice in which one man had 4 dice and the other only 1. In the second place, suppose the electorate be limited some method of qualification must be made. For example, that people with certain income shall be electors. Now I ask you, O Mohammedans, weep at your condition. Have you such wealth that you can compete with the Hindus? Most certainly not. Suppose, for example, that an income of rupees 5,000 a year be fixed on, how many Mohammedans will there be? Which party will have the larger number of votes? I put aside the case that by a rare stroke of luck, a blessing comes through the roof and some Mohammedan is elected. In the normal case, no single Mohammedan will secure a seat in the Viceroy's Council. The whole council will consist of Babu so-and-so, Mittar, Babu so-and-so Ghosh, and Babu so-and-so Chakravarti. Laughter. Sorry. Again, what will be the result for the Hindus of a province? Though their condition be better than that of the Mohammedans, what will be the result for those Rajputs? The swords of our ancestors are still wet with blood. And what will be the result for the peace of the country? If there's any hope that we and our brave brothers, the Rajput, can endure it in silence, now we will suppose a third kind of election. Suppose a rule to be made that a suitable member of Mohammedans and a suitable number of Hindus are to be chosen. I am aghast when I think on what grounds this number is likely to be determined. Of necessity, proportion to total population will be taken. So there will be one number for us to every 4 of the Hindus. No other conditions can be laid down. Then they will have 4 votes and we shall have 1. Now, I will make a 4th supposition. Leaving aside the question as to the suitability of members with regard to population, let us suppose that a rule is laid down that half the members are to be Mohammedan and half Hindus, and that the Mohammedans and Hindus are each to elect their own men. Now I ask you to pardon me for saying something which I say with a sore heart. In the whole nation, there is no person who is equal to the Hindus in fitness for the work. I have worked in the council for 4 years, and I have always known well that there can be no man more incompetent or worse fitted for the post than myself. And show me the man who, when elected, will leave his business and undertake the expense of living in Calcutta and Simla, leaving alone the trouble of the journeys. Tell me who there is of our own nation in the Punjab, Oudh, and northwestern provinces who will leave his business, incur these expenses, and attend the Viceroy's council for the sake of his countrymen. What this is the condition of your nation. When this is the condition of your nation, it is expedient for you to take part in the business on the absurd supposition that the demands of the Congress would, if granted, be beneficial for the country. Spurn such foolish notions. It is certainly not expedient to adopt this cry, Chalo Madras, without thinking of the consequences. Everybody knows well that the agitation of the Bengalis is not the agitation of the whole of India. But suppose it were the agitation of the whole of India, and that every nation had taken part in it, you suppose the government is so weak that it would not suppress it, but must needs be itself overwhelmed? Have you not seen what took place in the mutiny? It was a time of great difficulty. The army had revolted. Some badmashas had joined it. The government wrongly believed that the people at large were taking part in the rebellion. I am the man who attacked this wrong notion, and while government was hanging its officials, while the government officials were hanging people, I printed a pamphlet, The Causes of the Indian Revolt, and told government that it was entirely false to suppose that the people at large were rebellious. But in spite of all these difficulties, but in spite of all these difficulties, what harm could this rebellion do to the government? Before the reinforcing English troops had landed, she had regained her authority from shore to shore. Hence, what benefit is expected from all this for the country, and what revolution in the government could be produced? the only results can be to produce a useless uproar, to raise suspicions in government, and to bring back again that time which we experienced 30 or 31 years ago. This is on the supposition that by all of us coming together, we could do something. But if you take the agitation as it is, what could it accomplish? The case of Ireland is held up as an example. I will not discuss the question whether that agitation is right or wrong. I will only point out that there are, at this moment in Ireland, thousands of men ready to give up their lives at the point of the sword. Men of high position who sympathize with the movement fear neither the prison nor the bayonets of the police. Will you kindly point out to me 10 men amongst our agitators who will consent to stand face to face with the bayonets? When this is the case, then what sort of an uproar is this? And is it of such a nature that we ought to join it? We ought to consider carefully our own circumstances and the circumstances of government. If government entertains unfavorable sentiments towards our community, then I can say with the utmost force that these sentiments are entirely wrong. At the same time, if we are just, we must admit that such sentiments would be by no means unnatural. I repeat it. If the government entertains these bad sentiments, it is a sign of incompetence and folly. But I say this, we ought to consider whether government can entertain such thoughts or not. Has she any excuse for such suspicions or not? I reply that she certainly has. Think for a moment who you are. What is this nation of ours? We are those who ruled India for 6 or 700 years. From our hands, the country was taken by the government into its own. It is not natural then for the government to entertain such thoughts. Is government so foolish as to suppose that in 70 years we have forgotten all our grandeur and our empire? Although should government entertain such notions, she is certainly wrong. Yet we must remember she has ample excuse. We do not live on fish, nor are we afraid of using a knife and fork, lest we should cut our fingers. Our nation is of the blood of those who made not only Arabia, but Asia and Europe to tremble. It is our nation which conquered with its sword the whole of India, although its people were all of one religion. I say again that if the government entertains suspicions of us, it is wrong. But do her the justice and admit that there is reasonable ground for such suspicions. Can a wise ruler forget that the state of things was so short a time ago? He can never forget it. If then the Mohammedans also join these monstrous and unreasonable schemes, which are impossible of fulfillment and which are disastrous for the country and for our nation, what will be the result? If the government be wise and Lord Dufferin be a capable viceroy, then he will realize that a Mohammedan agitation is not the same as a Bengali agitation, and he will be bound to apply an adequate remedy. If I were viceroy and my nation took part in this affair, I would first of all drop down on them and make them feel their mistake. Our course of action should be such as to convince government of the wrongness of her suspicions regarding us, if she entertains any. We should cultivate mutual affection. What we want, we should ask for as friends. And if any ill will exist, it should be cleansed away. I'm glad that some Pathans of the northwestern provinces and Oudh are here today, and I hope some Hindu Rajputs are also present. My friend Yusuf Shah of the Punjab sits here, and he knows well the mood of the mind of the people of the Punjab, of the Sikhs and Muslims. Suppose that this agitation had arisen in Bengal, and I imagine that no danger can spring from it there. Suppose that this agitation extends to these provinces, to the Rajputs and Pathans of Peshawar. Do You think it will confine itself to writing with the pen, the scratching of a pen, and to mere talking, babbling. It will then be necessary for government to send its army and show by bayonets what the proper remedy for this agitation is. I believe that when government sees the Mohammedans and other brave races taking part in the stupid agitation, it will be necessary for government to pass a new law and to fill the jails. Oh, my brothers, children of my heart, this is your relationship to government. You should conduct yourself in a straightforward and calm manner, not come together to make a noise and hubbub like a flock of crows. Another very laughable idea is this. Stress is laid on these suggestions that the Arms Act be repealed, that Indian volunteers be enlisted, and that army schools be established in India. But do you know what nation is proposing them? If such proposals had come from Mohammedans or from our Rajput brothers, whose ancestors always wore the sword, which, although it is taken from their belts, yet still remains in their hearts, if they had made such proposals, there would have been some sense in it. But what nation makes these demands? I agree with them in this and consider that government has committed two very great mistakes. One of them is to trust the Hindustanis and not to allow them to become volunteers. A second error of government of the greatest magnitude is this, that it does not give appointments to the army to those brave people whose ancestors did not use the pen to write with. No, but a different kind of pen. Nor did they use black ink, but the ink they dipped their pens in was red ink, which flows from the bodies of men. Oh, brothers, I fought government in the harshest language about these points. The time is, however, coming when my brothers, Pathans, Shaheds, Syeds, Hashmi, and Qureshi, whose blood smells of the blood of Abraham, will appear in glittering uniform as colonels and majors in the army. But we must wait for that time. Government will most certainly attend to it, provided you do not give rise to suspicions of disloyalty. So, brothers, government too is under some difficulties as regards this last charge I have brought against her. Until she can trust us as she can her white soldiers, she cannot do it. But we ought to give proof that whatever we were in former days, the time has gone. And now that we are as well disposed to her as the Highlanders of Scotland, and then we should claim this from government. I will suppose for a moment that you have conquered a part of Europe and become its rulers. I ask whether you would equally trust the men of that country. This was a mere supposition. I come now to a real example. When you conquered India, what did you yourself do? For how many centuries was there no Hindu in the army list? But when the time of the Mughal family came and mutual trust was established, the Hindus were given very high appointments. Think how many years old is the British rule? How long ago was the mutiny? And tell me how many years ago government suffered such grievous troubles, though they arose from the ignorant and not from the gentlemen. Also call to.
जी दादा, आप रुको, अब आगे मैं चलाता हूँ, ठीक है?
जी.
Also call to mind that the Madras Presidency government has given permission to the people to enlist as volunteers. I say too that this concession was premature, but it is a proof of that when trust is established, government will have no objection to make you also volunteers. And when we shall be qualified, we shall acquire those positions with which our forefathers were honored. Government has advanced one step. She has also shown a desire to admit us to the civil appointments in the empire. Cheers. In the time of Lord Ripon, I happened to be a member of the council. Lord Ripon had very good heart and kind disposition and every qualification for a governor, but unfortunately his hand was weak. His ideas were radical. At that time, the local board and municipality bills were brought forward, and the intention of them was that everybody should be appointed by election. Gentlemen, I'm not a conservative, I'm a great liberal, but to forget the prosperity of one's nation is not a sign of wisdom. Wisdom. The only person who was opposed to the system of election was myself. If I'm not bragging too much, I think I say that it was on account of my speech that Lord Ripon changed his opinion and made one-third of the members appointed and two-thirds elected. Now just consider the result of the election. In no town are Hindus and Mohammedans equal. Can the Mohammedans suppress the Hindus and become the masters of our self-government? In Calcutta, an old bearded Mohammedan of noble family met me and said that a terrible calamity had befallen them. In his town, there were 18 elected members, not one of whom was a Mohammedan. All were Hindus. Now he wanted government to appoint some Mohammedan, and he hoped government would appoint himself. This is the state of things in all cities. In Aligarh also, were there not a special rule, it would be impossible for any Mohammedan except my friend Maulvi Muhammad Yusuf to be elected. And at last, he too would have to rely on being appointed by government. Then how can we then how can we walk along a road for which neither or nor the country is prepared? I'm
Neither
not
we,
tired.
neither we nor the country is prepared.
Neither we nor the country is prepared. I'm not tired and have no further strength left. I can say no more. But in conclusion, I have one thing to say, lest my friends should say that I have not told them that is of advantage for
What
our
is of
nation and
advantage? What is of
them what
advantage?
is of advantage for our nation and for the country. And by what thing we may attain prosperity. My age is above 70. Although I cannot live to see my nation attain to such a position as my heart longs for it. Yet my friends who are present in this meeting will certainly see the nation attain such honor, prosperity, and high rank if they attend to my advice. But my friends, do not liken me to that dyer who only oppressed mango colored dye,
No. Only possessing
who
mango
only
colored
possessed
dye.
who only
Possessing.
possessing mango colored dye, said mango colored dye was the only one he liked. I assure you that the only thing which can raise you to a high rank is high education. Until our nation can give birth to a highly educated people, it will remain degraded. It will be below others and will not attain such honor as I desire for it. The, uh, these
Sorry.
These precepts I have given you from the bottom of my heart. I do not care if anyone calls me a madman or anything else. It was my duty to tell those things which, in my opinion, are necessary for the welfare of my nation, and to cleanse my hands before God, the omnipotent, the merciful, and the forgiver of sins. अब ये दादा ये सेम है जैसे आज जो है AIMIM है ना
Mm-hmm.
से, सेम ही वो है सेम स्टैंड है कुछ अलग नहीं है and here are a few extracts from his follow-up speech delivered in Meerut on 16th March 1888 where he continued his
Diatribe. Diatribe.
diatribe against Bengali Hindus and exhortation to the Muslims to extend loyalty to the British citing shared Arabic beliefs. अब यहाँ
Abrahamic
पे वो
beliefs.
हाँ
Abrahamic beliefs.
एब्राहमिक बिलीफ्स, यहाँ जो है वही जो है ना वो, क्योंकि एब्राहमिक फेथ है सारे, तो वो इसी के
People of
इसी
the
को
book.
हाँ पीपल ऑफ द बुक, वो वही वाली चीज जो है एक तरीके से मतलब इमोशनली ब्लैकमेलिंग। आई थिंक इट expedient that I should first of all tell you the reason why I'm about to address you on the subject of tonight's discourse. You know, gentlemen, that from a long time our friends the Bengalis have shown very warm feeling on political matters. 3 years ago, they founded a very big assembly which holds its sittings in various places, and they have given it the name National Congress. We and our nation gave no thought to the matter, and we should be very glad to our friends, the
For our
Bengalis, to be
friends.
successful. Glad for our friends, the Bengalis, to be successful. If we were on the opinion that they
Of the
had,
opinion.
of the opinion
ये
that they
बहुत
had
छोटा आ
by,
रहा है ना,
हाँ,
हाँ, छोटा आ रहा है
by,
ना राइटिंग आपके सामने,
हाँ कोई नहीं ज्यादा। If we
बढ़ा
were
दीजिए
of
ना
the
इसको.
लेट लगेगी ज्यादा फिर कवर करने में, इसलिए बड़ा नहीं कर रहा हूँ, फिर ये पेज थोड़ा बड़े हो जाएंगे, फिर और देर लगेगी। If we were of the opinion that they had by their education and ability made such progress and rendered them fit for the claims they put forward, but although they are superior to us in education, yet we have never admitted that they have reached that level to which they lay claim to have attained. Nevertheless, I have never in any article or in any speech or even in conversation in any place put difficulties or desired to put difficulties in the way of their undertakings. It has never been my wish to oppose any people or any nation who wish to make progress and who have raised themselves up to that rank to which they wish to attain and for which they are qualified. But my friends, the Bengalis have made a most unfair and unwarrantable interference with my nation, and therefore it is my duty to show clearly what is unwarrantable interference. What is
What
this
this
what is this
what
un
this is नहीं है,
what
what
is
this
what
unwarrantable interference has been.
what this unwarrantable
आप क्या
interference has
चाहते हैं,
been.
जल्दी जल्दी पढ़ो, मैं जल्दी
हाँ,
जल्दी पढ़ो, हाई स्पीड में.
and to protect my nation from the evils that may arise from it. It is quite wrong to suppose that I have girded up my loins for the purpose of fighting my friends, the Bengalis. My object is only to make my nation understand what I consider conducive to its prosperity. It is
conducive
what is
to its
conducive
prosperity.
to its prosperity. It is incumbent
Incumbent.
on me to show what evils would
Befall.
befall my nation from joining in the opinions of the Bengalis. I have no other purpose in view. The unfair interference of these people in this is this, that they have tried to produce a false impression that the Mohammedans of these provinces agree with their opinions. But we also are inhabitants of this country, and we cannot be ignored of the real nature
Ignorant.
we cannot be ignorant of the real nature of the events that are taking place in our own northwest provinces. And
मैं पढ़ता हूँ रुको.
जी दादा आ गए.
मैं पढ़ता हूँ.
नहीं मुझे थोड़ा सा
but also we are inhabitants of this country, and we cannot be ignorant of the real nature of the events that are taking place in our own northwestern provinces now. However, their color may be painted in newspapers, and whatever aspect they may be made to assume, it is possible that the people of England who are ignorant of the real facts may be deceived on seeing their false representations. But we and the people of our country who know all the circumstances can never be thus imposed on. Our Mohammedan nation has hitherto sat silent. It was quite indifferent as to what the Babus of Bengal, the Hindus of these provinces, and the English and Eurasian inhabitants of India might be doing, but they have now been wrongly tampering with our nation. In some districts, they have brought pressure to bear on Mohammedans to make them join the Congress. I'm sorry to say it, but they never said anything to those people who are powerful and are actually raisers, nobles, and counted the leaders of the nation. And they brought unfair pressure to bear on such people as could be subjected to their influence. In some districts, they pressed men by the weight of authority. In others, they forced them in this way, saying that the business they had at heart would not prosper unless they took part. And they led them to suppose that they could not get bread if they held aloof. They even did not hold back from offering the temptation of money. What is the man that does not know this? Sorry, where's the man that does not know this? Who does not know who were the 3 or 4 Mohammedans of the northwestern provinces who took part with them and why they took part? The simple truth is that they were nothing more than hired men. Such men they took to Madras, and having got them there, said, "These are the sons of Nawabs, and these are raisers of such and such districts, and these are such and such rise,
राय होते थे ना वैसे वाला
जी, rise of such and such districts, and these are such and such great Mohammedans." Whilst everybody knows how the men were bought, we know very well the people of our own nation, and that they have been induced to go either by pressure or by folly or by love of notoriety or by poverty. If any rise on his own inclination and opinion join them, we do not care a lot. But one man's leaving us, our crowd is not diminished. But this telling of lies that the men are landlords and nawabs of such and such places, and the attempt to give a false impression that the Mohammedans have joined them, this is a most unwarrantable interference with our nation. When matters took such a turn, then it was necessary that I should warn my nation of their misrepresentations in order that others should not fall into that trap, and that I should point out to my nation that the few who went to Madras went by pressure or from some temptation or in order to help their profession or to gain notoriety or were bought. No rise from here took part in it. This was the cause of my giving a speech at Lucknow in 1887, contrary to my wont, on the evils of the National Congress. And this is the cause also of today's speech. And I want to show this, that except Badruddin Taibji, who is a gentleman of a very high position and for whom I have great respect, no leading Mohammedan took part in it. He did take part, but I think he made a mistake. He has written me 2 letters, one of which was after the publication of my Lucknow speech. I think that he wants me to point out those things in the Congress which are opposed to the interests of Mohammedans in order that he may exclude them from the discussion. But in reality, the whole affair is bad for Mohammedans. However, let us grant that Badruddin Taibji's opinion is different from ours. Yet it cannot be said that his opinion is the opinion of the whole nation, or that his sympathy with the Congress implies the sympathy of the whole community. My friend there, Mirza Ismail Khan, who has just come from Madras, told me that no
Mohammedan Rais of Madras took part in the Congress.
No Mohammedan rise of Madras took part in the Congress. It is said that Prince Humayun Jah joined it. Let us suppose that Humayun Jah, whom I do not know, took part in it. Yet opposition as a nation will not suffer simply because 2 men stand aside. No one can say that because of these 2 rise took part in it, that therefore the whole nation has joined it. To say that the Mohammedans have joined it is quite wrong and is a false accusation against our nation. If my Bengali friends had not adopted this wrong course of action, I should have had nothing to do with the National Congress or with its members, nor with the wrong aspirations for which they have raised such an uproar. Let the delegates of the National Congress become the stars of heaven, or the sun itself. I am delighted. But it was necessary and incumbent on me to show the falsity of the impression which, by taking a few Mohammedans with them by pressure or by temptation, they wished to spread that the whole Mohammedan nation had joined them. Gentlemen, what I'm about to say is not only useful for my own nation, but also for my Hindu brothers of these provinces who, from some wrong notions, have taken part in this Congress. At last, they also will be sorry for it, although perhaps they will never have occasion to be sorry, for it is beyond the region of possibility that the proposals of the Congress should be carried out fully. These wrong notions, which have grown up in a Hindu fellow countryman, and on account of which they think it expedient to join the Congress, depend on two things. The first thing is this, that they think that as both they themselves and the Bengalis are Hindus, they have nothing to fear from the growth of the influence. The second thing is this, that some Hindus, I do not speak of all the Hindus, but only of some, think that by joining the Congress and by increasing the power of the Hindus, they will perhaps be able to suppress those Mohammedan religious rights which are opposed to their own, and all uniting annihilate them. But I frankly advise my Hindu friends that if they wish to cherish their religious rights, they can never be successful in this way. If they are to be successful, it can only be by friendship and agreement. The business cannot be done by force, and the greater the enmity and animosity, the greater will be their loss. I will take Aligarh as an example. There, Mohammedans and Hindus are in agreement. The Dasera and Moram fell together for 3 years, and no one knows what took place. That is, things remained quiet. It is worth notice how, when an agitation has started against cow killing, the sacrifice of cows increased enormously, and religious animosity grew on both sides, as all who live in India well know. They should understand that those things that can be done by friendship and affection cannot be done by any pressure or force. If these ideas which I have expressed about the Hindus of these provinces be correct, and the condition be similar to that of the Mohammedans, then they ought to continue to cultivate friendship with us. Let those who live in Bengal eat up their own heads, that is, involve themselves in difficulties. What they want to do, let them do it. What they don't want to do, let them not do it. Neither their disposition nor their general condition resembles that of the people of this country. Then what connection have the people of this country with them? As regards Bengal, there is, as far as I'm aware, in Lower Bengal, a much larger proportion of Mohammedans than Bengalis. And if you take the population of the whole of Bengal, nearly half are Mohammedans and something over half are Bengalis. These Mohammedans are quite unaware of what sort of thing the National Congress is. No Mohammedan Rais of Bengal took part in it, and the ordinary Bengalis who live in the districts are also as ignorant of it as the Mohammedans. In Bengal, the Mohammedan population is so great that if the aspirations of those Bengalis who are making so loud an agitation be fulfilled, it will be extremely difficult for the Bengalis to remain in peace, even in Bengal. These proposals of the Congress are extremely expedient for the country, which is inhabited by two different nations who drink from the same well, breathe the air of the same city, and depend on each other for its life. To create an animosity between them is good neither for peace, nor for the country, nor for the town. After this long preface, I wish to explain what method my nation, nay, rather the whole people of this country, ought to pursue in political matters. I will treat in regular sequence of the political questions of India in order that you may have the full opportunity of giving your attention to them. The first of all is this, in whose hands shall the administration and the empire of India rest? Now suppose that all English and the whole English army were to leave India, taking with them all their cannon and their splendid weapons and everything, then who would be rulers of India? Is it possible that under these circumstances, two nations, the Mohammedans and the Hindus, could sit on the same throne and remain equal in power? Most certainly not. It is necessary that one of them should conquer the other and thrust it down, To hope that both could remain equal is to desire the impossible and the inconceivable. At the same time, we must remember that although the number of Mohammedans is less than that of the Hindus, and although they contain far fewer people who have received a high English education, yet they must not be thought insignificant or weak. Probably they would be by themselves enough to maintain their own position. But suppose they were not, then our Muslim brothers, the Pathans, who come out as a swarm of locusts from their mountain valleys and make rivers of blood to flow from their frontier in the north to the extreme end of Bengal. This thing, who after the departure of the English would be conquerors, would rest on the will of God. But until one nation has conquered the other and made it obedient, peace could not reign in the land. This conclusion is based on proofs so absolute that no one can deny it. Now suppose that the English are not in India and that one of the nations of India has conquered the other, whether the Hindus, the Mohammedans, or the Mohammedans, the Hindus. At once, some other nation of Europe, such as the French, the Germans, the Portuguese, or the Russians, will attack India. The ships of war, covered with iron and loaded with flashing cannons and weapons, will surround her on all sides. At that time, who will protect India? Neither Hindus can save, nor Mohammedans, neither the Rajputs, nor my brave brothers, the Pathans. And what will be the result? The result will be this: the foreigners will rule India, because the state of India is such that if foreign powers attack her, no one has the power to oppose them. From this reasoning, it follows of necessity that an empire, not of any Indian race, but of foreigners, will be established in India. Now, will you please decide which of the nations of Europe you would like to rule over India? I ask you, if you would like Germany, whose subjects weep for heavy taxation and the stringency of their military service, would you like the rule of France? Stop. I fancy you would perhaps like the rule of the Russians, who are great friends of India and are Mohammedans, and under whom the Hindus will live in great comfort, and who will protect with the tenderest care the wealth and property which they have acquired under English rule. Everybody knows something or other about these powerful kingdoms of Europe. Everyone will admit that their governments are far worse, nay, beyond comparison worse than the British government. It is therefore necessary that for the peace of India and for the progress of everything in India, the English government should remain for many years, in fact, forever. When it is granted that the maintenance of the British government and of no other is necessary for the progress of our country, then I ask whether there is an example in the world of one nation having conquered and ruled over another nation, and that conquered nation claiming it as a right that they should have representative government. The principle of representative government is that it is government by a
nation.
So ऊपर वाली लाइन के नीचे
Government by a nation, and that the nation in question rules over its own people and its own land.
The principle of representative government is that it is governed by a nation and that the nation in question rules over its own people and its own land. Can you tell me of any case in the world's history in which any foreign nation, after conquering another and establishing its empire over it, has given representative government to the conquered people? Such a thing has never taken place. It is necessary for those who have conquered us to maintain the empire on a strong basis. When rulers and ruled are one nation, representative government is possible. For example, in Afghanistan, of which Amir Abdur Rahman Khan is the ruler, where all the people are brothers, Afghans, it might be possible. If they want, they can have representative government. But to think that representative government can be established in a country over which a foreign race rules is utterly vain, nor can a trace of such a state of things be discovered in the history of the world. Therefore, to ask that we should be appointed by election to the legislative council is opposed to the true principles of government, and no government whatever, whether English or German or French or Russian or Muslim, could accept this principle. The meaning of it is this: abandon the rule of the country and put it in our hands. Hence, it is in no way expedient that our nation should join in and echo these monstrous proposals. How can we possibly claim as a right those things on which the very existence and strength of the government depends? We most certainly have not the right to put those people in the council whom we want and to keep out those whom we don't want, to pass those laws that we want and to veto those laws that we dislike. If we have the right to elect members for the Legislative Council, then there's no reason why we should not have the right to elect members for the Imperial Council. In the Imperial Council, thousands of matters of foreign policy and state secrets are discussed. Can you with justice say that we Indians have a right to claim those things, to make an agitation for things? For such things, to make an agitation for such things can only bring misfortune on us and on the country. It is opposed to the true principles of government and is harmful for the peace of the country. The aspirations of our friends, the Bengalis, have made such progress that they want to scale a height to which it is beyond their powers to attain. But if I'm not in error, I believe that the Bengalis have never at any period held sway over a particle of land. They are altogether ignorant of the method by which a foreign race can maintain its rule over other races. Therefore, reflect on the doings of your ancestors and be not unjust to the British government to whom God has given the rule of India. And look honestly and see what is necessary for it to do to maintain its empire and to hold on to the country. Hold on the country. You can appreciate these matters, but they cannot, who have never held a country in their hands nor won a victory. O my brother Musalmans, I again remind you that you have ruled nations and have for centuries held different countries in your grasp. For 700 years in India, you have had imperial sway. You know what it is to rule. Be not unjust to that nation which is ruling over you, and think also on this. How upright is a rule of such benevolence as the English government shows to the foreign nations under her? There is no example in the history of the world. See what freedom she has given in her laws, and how careful she is to protect the rights of her subjects. She has not been backward in promoting the progress of the natives of India and in throwing open to them high appointments. As commencement of her rule, except clerkships and qaziships, judgeships, there was nothing. The qazis of the Pargana, who were called commissioners, decided small civil suits and received very small pay. Very small pay. Up to 1932 or 1933, the state of things lasted. Sorry, up to 1832 or 1833, the state of things lasted. But if my memory is not wrong, it was in the time of Lord William Bentinck that natives of India began to get honorable posts. The posts of Munsif, subordinate judge, and deputy collector on respectable pay were given to natives, and progress has been steadily going on ever since. In the Calcutta High Court, a Kashmiri Pandit was appointed equal to the English judges. After him, Bengalis have been appointed as High Court judges. At this time, there are perhaps 3 Bengalis in the Calcutta High Court, and in the same way, some Hindus in Bombay and Madras. It was your bad fortune that there was for a long time no Mohammedan High Court judge, but now there's one in the Allahabad High Court. Native High Court judges can cancel the decisions of English judges and collectors. They can ask them for explanations. The subordinate native officers also have full authority in their posts. A deputy collector, a sub-judge, or a munsif decides cases according to his opinion and is independent of the opinion of the judge or collector. None of things have been acquired by fighting or opposition. As far as you have made yourselves worthy of the confidence of the government, to that extent, you have received high positions. Make yourselves her friends and prove to her that your friendship with her is like that of the English and the Scotch. After this, what you have to claim on condition that you are qualified for it. About this political controversy, in which my Hindu brothers of this province, to whom I have given some advice and who have, I think, joined for some wrong notion, from some wrong notions, have taken part. I wish to give some advice to my Mohammedan brothers. I do not think the Bengali politics useful for my brother Muslims. Our Hindu brothers of these provinces are leaving us and are joining the Bengalis. Then we ought to unite with that nation and with whom we can unite. No Mohammedan can say that the English are not people of the book. No
Bro.
Mohammedan can deny this, that God has said that no people of other religions can be friends.
दादा सारा रेपिटेटिव होता जा रहा है, एक ही तरीके का रोना रो रहा है ये, ठीक है। जैसे सेम आज जो है असउद्दीन ओवैसी है, सेम ही रोना इसका है सारी जगह, उसी चीज
अंग्रेजों को बेवकूफ बना रहा है और बोल रहा है कि बंगाली और हिंदू ज्वाइन कर रहा है तो ये गलत है, उनका पोजीशन जो है ढीला हो रहा है, इनको जगह नहीं मिल रही है।
जैसे असउद्दीन ओवैसी इस टाइम कहता है कि 20% मुसलमान की पॉपुलेशन है, 35% जेल में है, उसका कहने का मतलब है कोई और भी क्राइम ये करे तो किसी और को डाल दो, वो रेशियो मेंटेन करके रखो बस।
ये अपने पढ़े लिखे होने का फायदा उठा रहा है, कुछ भी बोल रहा है। ये देखो क्या आगे क्या बोला, दैट गॉड हैज सेड दैट नो पीपल ऑफ अदर रिलीजन कैन बी फ्रेंड ऑफ मोहम्मदन। ये वो तो कुरान के खिलाफ बोल रहा है, ये
एक्सेप्ट द क्रिश्चियंस
बोल रहा है।
You had read the Quran and believes it. He can know that a nation cannot expect friendship and affection from any other people. At this time, our nation is in a bad state as regards education and wealth. But God has given us the light of religion, and the Quran is present for our guidance, which has ordained them and us to be friends. अच्छा, ये आदमी जो है साइंस के अगेंस्ट में भी था।
हाँ?
ये आदमी साइंस के अगेंस्ट में भी था।
हाँ।
वो बोलता है कि
सारा सेम चीज रिपीट होगी, है दादा?
हाँ? सारा
सेम चीज रिपीट होगी, लबो लबाब आपको मालूम चल गया है।
इसको आगे चलो, छोड़ दो इसको, ये बकवास कर रहा है काफी देर से। मैं छोड़ दो, ये
सारा ही जो है बकवास करता रहेगा, सेम वही उसकी चापलूसी।
आई डू नॉट से दैट ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट, वहां जाओ देखो क्या बोल रहा है उधर, जहां पे वो
I do not understand what the words National Congress mean.
I do not say that in British government all things are good, ऐसा करके यहाँ पे है, जो वहां पे जहां से ये आइटलाइज खत्म हो जाता है। मिस्टर बेक, he is not black, he is very white, then why should we not के नीचे करके है वो मेरे में 181 में
काफी आगे चला गया मैं, रुको ऊपर जाता हूँ वापस। 146 ना,
आगे चलो, आगे 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 जाना है आगे। यहाँ पर ये जब यहाँ पर इसका पूरा स्पीच खत्म होती है, उसके बाद में आई डू नॉट से करके लिखा हो, जहाँ पे आइटलाइज खत्म होता है, वो जो टेढ़े में
अरे इसमें तो होम पे भी नहीं जा रहा है।
मैं करूं क्या इसको?
एक मिनट दादा, मैं उस पे आ जाता हूँ। टू नेशन थ्योरी पे थे ना हम, 146 पे थे।
हाँ, ये जो 146 टेढ़े में है, उसको टेढ़े वाले जो लेटर्स हैं वो खत्म कर दो, उसके नीचे आ रहा है वो।
I do not say that in the British government all things are good. Nobody can say that there is any government in the world who has ever been in which there is nothing bad, be the government of Mohammedan, Hindu or Christian. There is now a Sultan of Turkey who is a Mohammedan emperor and of whom we are proud. Even his Mohammedan subjects make complaints of his government. This is the condition of the Khedive of Egypt. Look at the governments of Europe and examine the condition of the government of London itself. Thousands of men complain about government. There's no government with which everybody is satisfied.
ये किस औकात से बोल रहा है? इसकी हस्ती क्या है? मतलब what authority he has got to speak all this?
Self-proclaimed leader of the Mohammedans.
दादा सेम वैसे ही है, हर किसी के मैटर में इनको बोलना होता है।
नहीं, इसको कहीं पे ये बोलने को कहीं बुलाया था क्या? कहाँ पे भाषण दे रहा था
ये मोहम्मद जुबैर जैसा इंडिपेंडेंट फैक्ट चेकर था उस समय का। बुलाया या नहीं बुलाया, लोग तो मतलब हवा तो दे रहे थे इनको ना।
थोड़ा आगे चलो, 2 पेज आगे चलो। इट इज पर्टिनेंट टू नोट दैट इवन एज ऑफ मार्च 1988 जहां पे आ रहा है वो पढ़ो तो।
इट इज पर्टिनेंट, हाँ अभी था। अरे
आगे
अभी
चलो,
आया
it is
था ये।
pertinent to note, आगे चलो जहां पर इट इज पर्टिनेंट टू नोट करके आ रहा है, वो पैरा शुरू हो रहा है, वहां जाओ। वो यहाँ पर वही है, टेंडर एक्शन जो खत्म हो जाता है उसके बाद में आ रहा है, वो फिर थोड़ा बोल्ड में आता है सीधा सीधा। इट इज पर्टिनेंट टू नोट दैट इवन एज ऑफ मार्च 1888
कहाँ पे बोल्ड में आ रहा है?
हाँ, जहाँ बोल्ड में आ रहा है ये अथर का
It is
खुद का है।
pertinent to note, हाँ,
हाँ,
रुक
ये वाला।
जाइए। It is pertinent to note that even as of, अरे रुक जाइए ना।
हाँ बस
वही
आगे
है,
बढ़ो।
वही है, हाँ।
It is pertinent to note that even as of March 1888, that is 17 years before the partition of Bengal in 1905 by Lord Curzon on religious
लाइन
Religious lines.
geography and Bengal and its implications for political assertions by Muslims, which as we shall see, was a clear sign of things to come. Again in 1888, when A.O. Hume and Badruddin Tyabji tried to secure Khan's support for the Congress, he retorted thus,
बस
I
छोड़
do
दो,
not understand.
छोड़ दो, यहीं पे छोड़ दो, इसको रिटॉर्टेड में पढ़ना नहीं है, ये अपना दिमाग खराब करता है। मतलब इन 1892 आगे चलो, इन 1892
In 1892, about 6 years before his passing, he expressed the following views.
ये भी
Some
छोड़ दो,
reflection.
छोड़ दो, फिर आगे जाके कांग्रेस tried to its best to, ये वाला।
The Congress tried its best to court Muslims to participate in the national movement for political autonomy by even offering a compromise on the delicate issue of ban on cow slaughter in this Madras session of 1887. At this session, under the presidentship of Badruddin Tyabji, the Congress decided that questions of social reform that relate to a particular community, especially Muslims, would be decided by leaders of that community alone. While one may be tempted to see this as a sign of statesmanship on the part of the Congress and transigence on the part of
And
those
intransigence. ठीक है दादा, मैं थोड़ी देर कर लेता हूँ।
पानी पियो, मैं पढ़ता हूँ, रुक जाइए प्रदीप, मैं पढ़ता हूँ। Congress and intransigence on the part of those representing the Muslim community. The fact of the matter is that the Congress had already embarked on the path of compromise by putting civilizational non-negotiable on the line, which served to further embolden the proponent of two-nation theory. Unsurprisingly, the Congress effort of via media too was rejected even by quite a few Muslim delegates of the Congress, which was interpreted by contemporary opinion makers as the direct impact of Syed Ahmed Khan on Muslim attitude across the board. In the word of Surendranath Banerjee, a Congress stalwart, इसको मैं मिस करता हूँ, ये जो कोट है ना वो करता हूँ, अगले में जाता हूँ। मजूमदार साइट्स गोपाल कृष्ण गोखले है, मिल गया प्रदीप?
हाँ हाँ, Majumdar cites Gopal Krishna Gokhale, who remarked in one of his letters that 70 millions of Mohammedans were more or less hostile to the national aspirations, and the resolutions condemning the Congress were passed by the Muslims of Allahabad, Lucknow, Meerut, Lahore, Madras, and several other places.
फिर इसको आगे चलो, इसको मत पढ़ो, यहाँ से from the brief history of Syed, यहाँ से
from the brief history of Syed Ahmed Khan discussed above, it is clear that his formulation of the two-nation theory was indeed a Dalawite vision of work all along.
Yes.
Couched in the European template of a nation state. The consistency with which Khan advanced the Dalawite position makes it abundantly evident that his occasional statements about his being a Hindu too were merely rhetoric meant for the public consumption before a predominantly non-Muslim audience. However, his core beliefs came to the fore when addressing his nation or his Qawm, as he called it, by the time of his death in 1898. thanks to his efforts, Muslim nationalism and the consequent Muslim separatism had been firmly entrenched, while Indic consciousness was still wallowing in misplaced and utopian notions
Utopian.
Utopian
Utopian
notion of Ganga Yamuna
notions
Tehzeeb.
Ganga Jamni
Tehzeeb.
syncretic culture
Syncretic
यानी
culture.
गंगा जमनी syncretic culture यानी गंगा जमनी तहजीब की ही बात हो रही है, ये तब का है. The journey towards Pakistan had begun even before the founding of the All India Muslim League 1906 and well before the Khilafat movement 1919. Khan's Aligarh movement was also able to forge a national Muslim identity, which other Dalawite movement could not. As stated earlier, the contribution of this movement to the solidification of the idea of Pakistan shall be discussed in the next two sections. However, before proceeding, it is important to discuss another critical aspect. Although Syed Ahmed Khan worked towards the creation of national Muslim identity informed and driven by his Dalawite Islamic worldview that divided the world into Muslims and non-Muslims, it appeared based on the available literature that he was not too keen on the idea of global pan-Islamism that started gaining traction in the 1870s and had become a major subject for Western powers to contend with in the decades that followed. After all, Muslims in Bharat had collected funds for Turkish relief to support the Ottoman Empire in its wars against Russians in the 1877 and 78, against the Greeks in 1897. Khan's lack of enthusiasm and perhaps even opposition to global pan-Islamism may have been the consequence of the British loyalism and his belief that it was important for the Muslims in Bharat to have the British on their side to keep the Hindus in check. Clearly, this was an expedient and limited departure from Dalawite pan-Islamism. This is evident from his own words in one of his letters to the confidentees.
मत पढ़ना इसको भी, पढ़ना मत, ये पढ़ो, इंटरेस्टिंगली पढ़ो आगे.
Interestingly, after his trip to London in 1869-70, which gave him opportunity to observe other cultures and societies, such as parts of the Ottoman Empire, Khan was impressed by the Ottoman.
After a trip to London in 1869-70, which gave him the opportunity to observe other cultures and societies, such as parts of the Ottoman Empire, Khan was impressed by the Ottoman Turks and Middle Eastern Muslims who seemed to be at home with both Arabic and French, and occasionally even Latin.
This
was reflected in his writings in 1872 prior to the establishment of the MAO college in Aligarh. Muslim Aligarh. ये कौन सा?
Oriental.
अच्छा. पूरा क्या है MAO का दादा?
वो तो ओरिएंटल है, अलीगढ़ है, एम मुस्लिम ही होगा.
ठीक है.
Where he recommended, देखिए, where he recommended Turco-Western style uniforms
for Muslim students in Bharat. Muslim students will have uniform consisting of black alpaka, half sleeve chukha and a red face cap. Also shall be required to put on a pair of socks and shoes of Western style. तेरी कुत्ते की बाप रे.
तो दादा वो तो समय की डिमांड थी ना, समय के हिसाब से करा था उसने. When Theodore Beck, the first principal of Aligarh, objected to the introduction of this uniform, Khan's reaction in his speech of 1894 to the students of Aligarh was as follows. The appeal which is now yours.
Which is now yours, that is a Turkish coat and face cap and English shoes is an elegant dress. It would be desired if all your coats were of the same dark color. In the color coat of Turkish sovereign, all nobles and attendants also wear shoes and the red face. And this is the dress we have chosen for you. तो तेरे को कहाँ से इसको आकर ताकत आ रही थी?
ज्यादा ताकत नहीं, मजहब
ओके
मजहब बोल रहा था दादा अंदर का।
नहीं इसको
सर
अंग्रेजों
ताकत
को
आती नहीं है, छीना जाता है।
पक्की बात है,
इन लोगों
ऐसा
से भी
नहीं है।
सीखना है, ताकत आती नहीं है सर, ताकत छीना जाता है।
अंग्रेजों ने
ये
सपोर्ट
हो
किया था इसको, सोसाइटी डिवाइड करो बिकॉज़ ही वाज सपोर्टिंग
हो
हिज
सकता है।
रूल ना
जी
हाँ हाँ
ही वाज
हो सकता
सपोर्टिंग
है अंदर से
ब्रिटिश
सपोर्ट हो सकता है अंदर से सपोर्ट हो, कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है।
रूल।
खान had even
सपोर्ट कर रहा है ना वो ब्रिटिश रूल को, बोलता ब्रिटिश को जाना चाहिए, नहीं तो रसिया आ जाएंगे, जर्मन आ जाएंगे, कोई भी आ जाएगा, उससे अच्छा ब्रिटिश यहाँ पे रहे ना, ऐसा बोल रहा है ना वो।
हाँ
Khan had
Khan
even
had
sent a
even
copy of his
sent a copy of his essay on the life of Muhammad for the blessings of Ottoman Sultan Abdul Aziz with the following words:
Whoa,
that your imperial and the royal majesty may long continue to grace, defend and strengthen the throne of the caliphs is the caliph is and ever will be the earnest and heartfelt prayer of the humble writer. ये बिछ गए थे जैसे वो आमिर खान वहां जाके बिछ गया था तैयब अर्दगान के पास, है ना? सेम ही है ना दादा, कुछ अलग तो नहीं है। It might be of note to recollect that Khan's mentor at Madrasa-e Rahmiya, Shah Muhammad Ishaq Dehlvi,
वो भी चिट्ठी लिखी
had
थी
reached
ना उसको, हाँ चिट्ठी लिखी थी ना उसने भी। ओके
had reached out to the Ottoman Sultan to advocate for a global Muslim movement. In contrast, the following was Khan's position in response to the rising chorus for solidarity with the Ottoman Empire in view of its growing tensions with Europe and the West.
अच्छा चाहता क्या है, हिंदुस्तान में चाहता कि ब्रिटिश रूल करते रहें, लेकिन वहां जहां पर मुस्लिम अंपायर है ना वहां पर वो रहनी चाहिए, ये चाहता है ये।
हाँ मतलब दोनों काम कर रहा था ना कि ब्रिटिश की यहाँ चमचागिरी भी हो जाए और उसके साथ में जो है वहां ऑटोमन एम्पायर चलते रहे, यानी खिलाफत भी आ जाए। और यहाँ ज्यादा हिंट मिल रहा है ब्रदरहुड का भी। ये
आगे
देखिए
देखो,
तो
आगे चलो, व्हेन मुस्लिम्स, इसके देखो एक लास्ट वाला जो है ना ये क्या यार, ये तो बहुत हरामी था, ये बहुत हरामी था।
मुस्लिम्स इन
दादा इसमें एक मिनट में पीछे वापस जा रहा हूँ।
क्या 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 करोगे?
ये देखिए दादा,
हाँ
वापस आ रहा हूँ, ये वाला देखो, ग्लोबल मुस्लिम मूवमेंट फॉर अ ग्लोबल मुस्लिम मूवमेंट, यानी कैलिफेट फैले। बाद में तो वो इंडिया में भी आएगी ना,
बाद में तो अंग्रेजों को लात मारकर भगा देता हो,
भगा देगा ना, वो इसीलिए चाह रहा था कि वो रहे यहाँ पर, and that's why he was supporting Russia, जो रसिया ने तो टर्की के खिलाफ लड़ाई लड़ी थी ना।
दादा यहाँ पे कहने का मतलब उसका हिंदू इतने स्ट्रांग नहीं हो जाए कि अगर ऑटोमन एम्पायर वहां हो जाए तो यहाँ वो आए तो चैलेंज कर दें उनको।
प्रदीप, he
चैलेंज
knew
ना
that
प्रेजेंट कर
Muslims
पाए।
are less in number, so he wanted some support from somewhere, इसके लिए वो ये कर रहा था, उसके दिमाग में ये घुसा हुआ था कि
ये हो गया,
अगर कुछ करना भी पड़ेगा तो ऑटोमन एम्पायर हमारे को हेल्प करने आ जाएगा, ऐसा करके सोच रहा हूँ।
तो आगे पढ़ते दादा। when the Muslims in India celebrated Turkish victory over Greece, he reacted as follows. Greece
जल गई उसकी, जल गई, देखो क्या बोल रहा है वो, पढ़ो।
To call such a victory the victory of Islam is to do no honor to Islam. Victory and defeat are by God, to whom He will. When the Turks with the British and French help defeated Russia in the Crimean War, would it be right to term this a victory of Islam? And when the Turks lost at the hands of Russians, would it be proper to, Allah forbid, ascribe this to a defeat for Islam? This is incorrect. It is incorrect to mix up mundane actions and causes with the message of Islam, which has been and will remain victorious. We should be happy that the Muslim state has achieved victory in its battles and not disaster. इतना ही काफी है।
However, this conflict between Khan's commitment to his community,
नौटंकी साला कुछ भी करता है। हाँ पढ़ ये पढ़ हाँ क्या बोल रहे हैं?
However, this conflict between Khan's commitment to his community and his attitudes towards the Ottomans was a product of his pragmatic loyalty to the British. When constrained to choose between loyalty to the British and support for
मैं तो सोचता हूँ ये स्ट्रेटजिक होना चाहिए, स्ट्रेटजिक लॉयल्टी है ये.
when constrained to choose between loyalty to the British and support for the pan-Islamic sentiments, the Muslim community had gradually started veering in favor of the latter, according to scholars
मतलब
such
पैन
as
इस्लामिक सेंटिमेंट्स. देखिए, लैटर मतलब पैन इस्लामिक सेंटिमेंट्स. मैं बता ना, ब्रिटिश को लात मारो फिर.
The separatist line taken by Syed Ahmed Khan in relation to Hindu-Muslim politics was accepted by the Muslim consensus in India with extensive concession to his loyalties attitude, but his loyalism was rejected when it came into conflict with pan-Islamic sympathies. This calibrated shift in the attitude of Muslim Empire towards the British Empire in favor of pan-Islamism by June 1897 is best captured by the following extract from Secretary of State for India, Lord Hamilton's letter. हाँ, इसने बजाई होगी इसकी. पढ़ो. We have
however a new element of intrigue and intrigue and commotion introduced into India by the Pan-Islamic Council and Constantinople and the close connection which is being established between the Sultan and the Indian Mohammedans. This shift in attitudes was the result of the influence of an individual who presented the most formidable challenge to Syed Ahmed Khan's leadership of Muslims in Bharat, Syed Jamal al-Din al-Afghani, 1838 to 1897, who ironically was not a native of the Indian subcontinent. Some have hailed Afghani as the most influenced Muslim thinker of the 19th century for his role in entrenchment of the idea of a global ummah and his consequent contribution to the idea of Khilafat या Caliphate कह लो उसको, at least 2 decades before the actual birth of the Khilafat movement in 1919. Therefore, the broad contours of his global pan-Islamic vision, his vision of a caliphate, his influence on the Muslim community in Bharat, and his agreements and disagreements with Syed Ahmed Khan warrant attention.
Okay, ये उसके बिल्कुल खड़ा मतलब कंटेम्परेरी था. अच्छा,
ये है दादा.
सर 1 घंटा 32 मिनट हो गए सर.
हाँ, इसीलिए अभी इसी जगह पे रोक देंगे. ये वैसे कंप्लीट हो गया ये वाला.
नहीं, ये इसको पढ़ना भी नहीं है, छोटा सा ही है, पढ़ सकते हो. इतना थोड़ा सा है. क्या कर रहा था वो? ये सैयद अहमद के खिलाफ था.
अरे दादा है, लंबा है.
नहीं, ये ज्यादा कट्टर था. मतलब ये तो इंडिया
ये
को
वाला
नहीं था ना.
हाँ,
बिकॉज ही वाज बोर्न इन शिया फैमिली. समस्या ये है, इसका सुन्नियों से झगड़ा था.
अच्छा.
थोड़ा सा पढ़ लो आगे, ज्यादा मत पढ़ना, थोड़ा पढ़ लो. कौन है ये?
सैयद जमाल अद-दीन
born in Afghanistan. यहाँ पढ़ो. whereas पढ़ो नीचे. Some scholars contend that he was born in Afghanistan, whereas others believe he was born in Shia family.
he was born in Afghanistan, whereas others believe he was born in Shia family in Ashdabad, then in Persia.
ईरान में. हाँ.
And हाँ, तब तो पर्सिया ही था, ईरान तो नहीं बना था. And that the appellation of al-Afghani to his name was a later addition in 1869 to enable reach to a wider Muslim audience without drawing attention to his Shia roots. The latter belief is best represented by Nikki R. Keddy, who authored an authoritative biography of Afghani.
बस छोड़ दे, यहाँ पे बंद कर देते हैं. ये है वो जमाल अल-दीन अल-अफगानी.
दादा इसमें समस्या ये है ना, इनका कोई भी ब्रदरहुड का भाई हो, किसी भी कंट्री का हो, ये उठा लेते हैं उसे कि हाँ ये हमारा रोल मॉडल है.
उठा कर लिया, ये आदमी खड़ा हो गया ना इसके अगेंस्ट में.
सेम केस ही तो हुआ था आमिर खान के साथ. वो भी तो वो भी तो खलीफा के सामने गया है दादा. वो भी तो खलीफा के सामने हाथ बांध के खड़ा हुआ था.
वो अलग बात है. यहाँ देखिए, यहाँ अलग चीज है, यहाँ कहानी अलग है. उसको इसको ओवरशैडो कर रहा है ये आदमी जो शिया है. यूसर्व कर रहा है उसका पोजीशन, सैयद अहमद खान का। मतलब आपस में इन लोगों का मेल नहीं है, तो फिर कैसे
नहीं
बोल रहा
दादा,
है कि पूरा
आगे अगर आगे
आप
जाते
समझ
हैं,
नहीं रहे हो।
अगर
ये
इसमें आगे जाते हैं, दादा सुनो, इसमें अगर आगे जाते हैं तो क्या बोल रहा है ये, by the second half of 1890s, thanks to the position already enjoyed as the Khalifa by the Ottoman Sultan among Sunni Muslims in Bharat, coupled with Britain growing tussles with Ottoman Empire in different parts of the world, and wider dissemination of the Afghans' pan-Islamic view in Bharat by the ulama, the shift in Muslim attitude here from the Buddhist loyalty position advocated by the likes of Syed Ahmed Khan of Afghanis pan-Islamic had gradually begun. No wonder that in July 1897, as stated earlier, the Secretary of State for India reported to the Viceroy with alarm the growing proximity between Muslim in Bharat and Ottoman Sultan. What is also important to note that Afghan pan-Islamic idea and vision of reclaiming Muslim land had laid out the template not just for the Khilafat movement but also for the Pakistani movement, since essentially Pakistan was meant to be Dar al-Islam to which Muslim in Bharat could immigrate by performing hijrat. Pakistan would serve as the new homeland from where jihad could be launched against Dar al-Harab, that is Bharat, to restore its status to Dar al-Islam. This has parallel with rationale of Syed Ahmad Barelvi's hijrat to northwest frontier province to wage jihad against the Sikhs and later the British, thereby demonstrating the thought continuum between Shah Waliullah Dehlvi, Syed Ahmad Barelvi, and Syed Jamal al-Din al-Afghani. The combined effect of Syed Ahmad Khan and Afghan was the simultaneous growth of Muslim nation and pan-Islamists and reconciliation between the two, which did not bode well for Bharat, as we shall see in the next two sections. Yeah.
दादा ये ओवर शैडो क्यों कर रहा था पता है आपको? क्योंकि इसका जो है वो एजेंडा था जो मुस्लिम ब्रदरहुड का है, इसलिए वो उनको लगा इट इज इन ग्रेटर गुड, तो इसलिए ओवर शैडो कर रहा था, ना कि ऐसा था कि वो शिया था और जो है ओवर शैडो कर रहा था ना, क्योंकि उसका कॉज बड़ा था।
आपस में भी तो ईगो क्लैश करता होगा ना कि भाई मेरा नाम हो जाए, मेरा नाम
यहाँ तो लिख रहा है सर, यहाँ तो लिख रहा है टू एनेबल रीच टू वाइडर मुस्लिम ऑडियंस।
अब अभी तो इनको मालूम नहीं है कि भाई मार्स पे जो है जीवन है या नहीं है। अगर वहां इनको मालूम चल जाए ना वहां पे जीवन है, तो ये तो वहां के लिए भी जो है उम्मा खड़ा कर देंगे कि हाँ चलो उनको भी मुसलमान बनाएंगे। दादा वो है, म्यूट हो।
बहुत हल्ला हो रखा है, मैंने कहा किताब बंद कर दो।
हाँ ठीक है, वो वैसे भी जितना हमें करना था, आज जितना प्लान किया था उतना हो गया।
ये हिंदू कौन है?
कहाँ पे दादा?
अपने हिंदू साहब कौन है इसमें जो ये तुम्हारे
हिंदू साहब अपना गुरुजी हैं
दादा के नीचे। अच्छा वो निखिल, ओके
हाँ
और
ठीक है दादा, इसको अब कमेंट्स लेना चालू करते हैं। आज का
बहुत तंग कर रहा है लड़का।
ठीक है, तो अब कमेंट लेना चालू करते हैं। पढ़ा तो है एम दादा ने सारा, लेकिन कमेंट लेंगे रावण दादा से। रावण दादा
नमस्कारम।
नमस्कार दादा, चरण स्पर्श।
भाई साहब इसका कोई इलाज नहीं है, ये तो आर पार ही होने वाला है।
इसका दादा इलाज ही है, या तो आर ही हो जाएगा या पार ही हो जाएगा।
वही दूसरा कुछ नहीं होने वाला है।
या तो ये मार के मानेंगे या तो मर के मानेंगे, दो में से एक काम होगा।
अभी देखो ना, हिसाब लगाओ आप, ये राजस्थान में, हरियाणा में, पंजाब में, इधर तो वो लोगों को मार मार के सबको भगाया था जब पार्टीशन हुआ। तो बहुत कम संख्या में थे वो लोग, तो चुप बैठा था इतना साल तक। ये अभी ये लोग ने उधर से ये प्रॉब्लम करना शुरू किया, और प्रॉब्लम शुरू किया तो उसमें भी वो लोग कामयाब है। इतना माइनॉरिटी होके भी ये तीनों स्टेट में, पंजाब में भी, हरियाणा में भी, राजस्थान में भी, वो देखो कितना वो लोग ने ये तीनों स्टेट में उनके पॉकेट के अंदर जो करते हैं वो कामयाब है उधर। उतना होके भी, यानी उनका संख्या राजस्थान और पंजाब और हरियाणा इतना कम होके भी उनको हम लोग क्रश नहीं कर पा रहे। देखो पुलिस का कोई ऑफिसर को ये लोग ने अभी हरियाणा में सर पे गोली मारा बोलते हैं। आप हिसाब लगाओ, कोई ऑफिसर को सर पे।
डीएसपी को मारा।
अच्छा, डीएसपी को मारा, देखो कैसा है यार।
डीएसपी को मारा,
और
कांस्टेबल को भी मारा,
एम
दो
साहब,
होमगार्ड। जी, ये
एम
चले गए
साहब,
सुप्रीम कोर्ट। कल
हाँ,
रात को 12 बजे लोग सुप्रीम कोर्ट चले गए।
हाँ,
सुप्रीम कोर्ट बिछ गया होगा फिर तो।
एम साहब, ये डीएसपी जो है ना, डीएसपी आज से शायद 1 साल भी नहीं हो गया लगता है। ये उधर एक डीएसपी आया था, वो इनको मार मार के थोड़ा ठीक कर रहा था, तो उसको धोखा में ये लोग ने कुछ किडनैप किया, क्या है मालूम नहीं, कोई उधर अंदरूनी जगह में किधर लेके गया, उधर उसको गोली मार के हत्या किया था इससे पहले एक डीएसपी को। ये अभी हो गया ले कुछ 1 साल के अंदर ही। देखो डीएसपी को मारने का गोली मार के वो लोगों ने खत्म किया, यानी मार डाला, फिर भी वो कोई समाचार भी नहीं बना। वो कौन कल्प्रेट था, इनको कोई सजा नहीं दिया।
इसीलिए तो लोग सुप्रीम कोर्ट गए ना, समाचार बनाने के लिए खुद गए लोग कि और हमें मारने दीजिए।
क्या यार। और दूसरा एक, आप उधर से एक दूसरा एक शॉकिंग न्यूज सुना। उधर साइबर सेल का जो पुलिस स्टेशन है उसको लोग ने उड़ा दिया बोलते हैं।
क्योंकि बहुत जगह तो वहीं से ऑपरेट कर रहे हैं ना लोग।
नहीं देखो क्या ये लोग, इनका ये दुश्मनी देखो कैसा है ये लोग का दिल के अंदर। यानी हिंदुओं को खत्म करना, साथ साथ इधर का जितना भी सरकारी मिशनरी को खत्म करना। तो ये इसका तो फैसला तो होना चाहिए ऐसा। ये कॉम्प्रोमाइज वाला
इसीलिए तो
बात
गया है
नहीं।
सर, इसीलिए गया है सुप्रीम कोर्ट।
हाँ,
मार के गया है।
अब हमारे लॉर्ड साहब जो है वो बिछ जाएंगे, है कहेंगे क्या चाहिए बताओ, हम देते हैं, हम पर्सनली आके देंगे।
मुझे तो ऐसा कुछ इसका कंक्लूजन नजर नहीं आ रहा भाई। ये इसको तो आर पार ही
दादा
कुछ
देखो,
करना पड़ेगा।
दादा चाटने की भी एक हद होती है, इतना चाटते हैं ये इनकी।
नहीं, मुझे लगता है ये चाटता भी नहीं है भाई साहब। ये डर है, मुझे तो लगता डर है। ये लोग डरते हैं इनसे, है ना, ये जिहादियों से ये लोग डरते हैं। ये इनका कोई भरोसा नहीं है। ये ड्यूटी में भी इनको उड़ा देगा, या फिर रिटायर्ड होने के बाद भी उड़ा देगा। तो ये एक डर की वजह से ये लोग यही कर रहे हैं।
रावण जी, आपको क्या लगता है?
कोशिश।
हाँ, बोलिए बोलिए।
केएस ब्रार को, जनरल केएस ब्रार को मारने का कोशिश किया था ना लंदन में। सलमान खुर्शीद को छुरी मार दिया, तो क्या दिक्कत है?
अच्छा, सलमान खुर्शीद झेला हुआ है? मुझे नहीं मालूम ये वाली कहानी।
हाँ हाँ, वो मंच पे एकदम छुरी मार दिया गया ना, कुछ दिन पहले का ही तो बात है।
अच्छा, ये वाला इंसिडेंट तो यूरोप में भी काफी हो रहे हैं ना, क्योंकि सॉफ्टवेयर तो वही है जो उस टाइम था, वही सॉफ्टवेयर आज भी है। सॉफ्टवेयर अपडेट नहीं हुआ है, मतलब बेसिक अपडेट उसके नहीं हुए हैं, बाकी तो अपडेशन हो रही है।
विंडोज ओल्ड वर्जन से चल रही है।
विंडोज
ओल्ड है,
9.8।
लेकिन सॉफ्टवेयर नए हैं। अपडेट्स हो रहे हैं, बस स्ट्रैटेजी में अपडेट्स हो रहे हैं।
नहीं नहीं,
अभी वहां भी तो
पुराना ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट कंप्यूटर लेके जैसे लोग बैठ जाते हैं ना टाइप करने, जब काम चल रहा है, पैसे आ रहे हैं, कोई रोक नहीं रहा है, दिक्कत नहीं आ रही, तो क्या दिक्कत?
सेम मॉड्यूल जो रोना पिटना इधर बुक में लगा रखा था, सेम रोना पिटना आज के लोग भी करते हैं।
हाँ, तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट इन लोग रोते हुए गए हैं ना, मार कर ये लोग
आर पार ही
रोते
करना
हुए
पड़ेगा
गए
भाई।
वहाँ।
जब तक आर पार नहीं करेगा ये कुछ नहीं होना।
अच्छा रावण दादा, आर पार से याद आया मुझे, ये बताओ आप और बीवी दादा, क्या यूरोप में आज भी वो फैसिस्ट फोर्सेस बची हुई हैं जो सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर में थी?
नहीं,
मतलब उनके
अभी
जो
नहीं।
उनके जो वो थे ना,
यूरोप का अभी जो
क्यों दादा,
नस्ल है ना,
एक को तो मैं ही जानता हूँ जो उसमें लड़ रही हैं, क्या नाम है आपके, रशिया और यूक्रेन वॉर में। अजॉव बटालियन क्या है, नियो नाजी ही तो है।
नहीं ऐसा इक्का दुक्का है, लेकिन उससे काम नहीं चलता है। देखो, जब तक कोई भी कंट्री के अंदर का उधर का जो मेजोरिटी पब्लिक है, यानी साधारण जन, उनके अंदर मिलिटेंसी नहीं होएगा, ये चलते रहेगा। भारत में भी यही दिक्कत है। देखो, भारत में पहले ये बीजेपी आने तक, यानी 2014 तक लगभग, या उससे पहले देखो, उस वक्त ये बजरंग दल, दुर्गा वाहिनी, श्री राम सेना, आरएसएस, ये सब बहुत स्ट्रांग था, मालूम है। जगह जगह में इनको पिटाई करके बराबर वो टक्कर लेता था, जगह जगह पे। जैसे ही बीजेपी आया 2014 में, उसके बाद धीरे 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 बीजेपी ने ही इनको, हमारा जितना भी ये हिंदू संगठन जो है स्ट्रीट फाइट करने वाला, इनको पकड़ के अंदर डाला। ऐसा एक एक करके खत्म करके ये नहीं, सफाई कर दिया है लोगों का। अभी हिंदुओं में कोई स्ट्रीट फाइट के लिए कोई संगठन भी नहीं है, उसमें कोई कार्यकर्ता भी नहीं है। इनको नपुंसक बना दिया बीजेपी वाला, बीजेपी आके ये पिछला 9 साल में। वरना ये आपको लगता है ये अभी ये बीजेपी के दौरान, स्पेशली 2019 के बाद ये लोग ने शुरू किया। एक टाइम में तो 14 से लेके 18 लास्ट तक ये जिहादियों ने थोड़ा डर के मारे ऐसे ही बैठा था, यानी उनको थोड़ा गलत फहमी था, हो सकता है कि ये अभी बीजेपी बैठा हुआ है केंद्र में, हम लोगों को मार पड़ेगा करके ये लोग ने 5 साल कुछ नहीं किया। यानी बीजेपी का जो पहले का टाइम में लोग ने कुछ नहीं किया। जैसे
अरे
19
नहीं
में
दादा,
सुनो ना, लेट मी
दादा
कंप्लीट। 2019 में दूसरा राउंड में जब आया बीजेपी, पहला ये किधर से शुरू किया मालूम है आपको? दिल्ली से शुरू किया। दिल्ली में चिटपुट कितना मंदिर में उधर हमला किया मालूम है? उधर से ये शुरू हो गया, फिर वो फैलते गया दिल्ली से, फिर दूसरा स्टेट में, फिर दूसरा। अभी दिल्ली में तो सबसे ज्यादा, मुझे लगता है सबसे ज्यादा अटैक 2019 के बाद दिल्ली में हो गया। ले जी,
अरे दादा, आप गलत
दिल्ली
बोले।
में
ऐसा नहीं है, ये लोग पहले भी करते थे। पहले इतनी न्यूज नहीं बनती थी, न साफ साफ न्यूज चैनल दिखाते थे, बस बोलते थे सांप्रदायिक समुदाय विशेष से द्वारा ये हरकतें की गई। पहले भी पत्थरबाजियां होती थी या रूट डाइवर्ट कर दिए जाते थे बजरंग दल इन सब के, इस तरह की जगह से पास ही नहीं होने देते थे। ये तो ये कहिए कि बीजेपी आई गवर्नमेंट तो अब इनकी बीचों बीच जगहों से निकलने लगे हैं। हाँ, ये कुछ हो सकता है कि कुछ जगह
हाँ
बीजेपी, जी,
नहीं,
कुछ
सही
जगह
कह रहे हो,
बीजेपी,
लेकिन क्या है,
जैसे
ये तो खैर पुरानी
हरियाणा।
थी, यात्रा पुरानी थी,
हम्म।
ये यात्रा पुरानी थी। लेकिन क्या है, आज के टाइम में इनके दिमागों में एक चीज भरी गई है कि बीजेपी आरएसएस, ठीक है, ये दो तुम्हारे दुश्मन
अरे
है।
सुनिए तो, इसके पीछे लॉजिक क्या है? इनके जो तबलीगी जमात है, इस्लामी है, ये भाई 15-16% तो है ही है ऑल ओवर इंडिया में। कहीं कहीं तो 20%, 25%, 30%। तो इनको ये समझाया जाता है कि सबसे बड़ा हिंदुओं को पे हावी होने पे हम लोग हावी हो जाएं। सबसे बड़ा अवरोध कौन उत्पन्न करता है? बीजेपी और आरएसएस। बीजेपी, आरएसएस, बजरंग दल, यही तीनों मिलके, अगर ये तीनों हट जाएं हिंदुस्तान से, तो हिंदुस्तान इस्लामिक राष्ट्र बन जाएगा। इनके लिए सबसे बड़ी दीवार यही है। तबलीगी जमात, मदरसों में, सब जगह यही इन लोगों को भरा जाता दिमाग में। और एक हद तक सच भी है, क्योंकि जब जैसे ही दंगा एक्टिवेट होता है किसी शहर में, तुरंत बजरंग दल एक्टिव हो जाता है। इनके व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप और पूरी जहाँ पे इनके मंदिर मठ होते हैं वहाँ पे तुरंत एक्टिवेट की, इतने लौंडे यहाँ इकट्ठे करो, इतने लौंडे यहाँ इकट्ठे करो, बचाना है हिंदुओं की बस्ती को, ये करना है, वो करना है। समझ रहे हैं इंडियन ट्रू जी? तो
मैं तो समझ
दूसरी
रहा
चीज
हूँ, लेकिन
जो
लोग ये नहीं समझ पा रहे हैं। अगर इनका प्रीवियस प्लान ये था कि पाकिस्तान को एज अ बेस यूज करेंगे। बेस क्या होता है? जहाँ की इंफॉर्मेशन आपके पास नहीं है, ठीक है। अगर आप मान लो मस्जिद में क्या होता है तुम्हें क्या मालूम है, मदरसे में क्या हो रहा है तुम्हें मालूम है नहीं, तो वो भी बेस ही जैसा हो गया ना। क्या वहाँ
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल
प्लानिंग बनी हुई
सही
तुम्हें
कहा।
थोड़ी मालूम है। अब आप ये
असल
वाली
में
स्ट्रैटेजी देखो, मैं आपको बताता हूँ। जो जैसे मिलिट्री में होता है ना कि आप अपने टारगेट को जिस जगह पे मारना चाहते हैं वहां तक आने दो, उसके बाद उसको घेर के एम्बुश करोगे। सेम काम तो वहां हुआ है नूह में। पहले अंदर आने दिया, ट्रैप में फंसने दिया, उसके बाद उन पे अटैक किया गया है।
बिल्कुल सही कहा है। पता नहीं कैसे क्या चुतियापा था ये, जाट गुजर इतने राइफल धारी होते हैं, साली कहाँ ही गाड़ में डाल के राइफल और कट्टा लेके चल रहे थे क्या? लेके चलते, मार फायर उड़ा देते, भूसी भर देते। अरे बाद में तो जेल जाना ही है,
अब ये
कम
जो
से कम
है
खौफ
देखो,
पैदा करके जेल जाओ।
या तो जो है जब अगले आर्म्स रख ही रहे तो भैया तुम सबको आर्म्स एक्ट से फ्री कर दो कि भैया जिसको रखना रख लो।
अरे वो तो मान लो
ठीक है जी।
प्रैक्टिकली वो मतलब काफी लंबा प्रोसेस वो नहीं हो सकता, पर हम लोगों को एक्टिव हो रहना चाहिए ना भाई। एक टीम हो
नहीं
अटैक
तो
करने
अगर
की, एक
एक
टीम हो
एक कम्युनिटी रख दी है तो तुम लगा के भी क्या कर रहे हो, ये आर्म्स एक्ट रख के भी क्या कर
अच्छा,
रहे हो? कह रहा
दोबारा
हूँ इसको
दोहरा रहा
रखने
हूँ
दो।
मैं, दोबारा दोहरा रहा हूँ। ये जो यात्रा चली थी ना, हर
हाँ
साल
दादा।
निकलती है ये।
हाँ, हर
तो
साल निकलती है।
पिछले साल तक गुजरों ने, इनके पास जितने लोगों के पास राइफल वगैरह या मतलब लाइसेंस्ड आर्म्स थी, इन लोग एस्कॉर्ट करके ले जाते थे। इस साल पता नहीं उनको परमिशन नहीं दिया गया।
ये मादर चौथ, ये खट्टर, ये भोसड़ी के ये 5-6 साल से यही दंगा ही तो कर रहा है। कहीं जाट वाला दंगा हो रहा है, कहीं गुजर वाले ट्रेन जला रहे हैं, कहीं कुछ हो जा रहा है, कहीं कुछ हो जा रहा है। ये साला नपुंसक है, ये आरएसएस का है कि
अच्छा
नहीं
अगर
पता
भाई
नहीं।
एक चीज है,
हाँ
लोग जागरूक है वहां के, सिर्फ गवर्नमेंट सोई है।
हाँ। अरे
वहां जागरूक
जाट
है
सबसे
लोग।
ज्यादा जागरूक हैं।
हाँ।
अरे जब इंडियन टू जी रामपुर की तहसीलों में, वो कौन सी है, भगतपुर तहसील करके कौन सी तहसील है, वहां पे जब ये 65% मुसलमान है, 30% बस हिंदू और जाट, उसमें 20-22%, तब इनको 65% को शांत कर दिया जाटों ने, क्षत्रियों ने मिलके इनकी गांव में भूसा भर दिया। तो अब ये साले ये क्या कहते हैं, ये क्या कर लेते, ये क्या कहते हैं इसमें, हरियाणा में 7% से ज्यादा नहीं है टोटल। मेवात में असल में ये, अब क्या कहा जाए, खट्टर झट्टर ये पता नहीं कहाँ से बन गए हैं।
नहीं, बेवकूफ हिंदू लोग
बीजेपी।
अनप्रिपेयर्ड गए थे।
हाँ,
बेवकूफ हिंदू लोग अनप्रिपेयर्ड गए थे। ये
इतनी बड़ी
मनु
बड़ी।
मानेसर को क्या जरूरत थी कि ये फेसबुक में डालना कि मैं आ रहा हूँ, मैं आ रहा हूँ। आया भी नहीं और इन लोगों को फंसा दिया।
नहीं नहीं नहीं, वो
नहीं दादा
आ
वो
रहा
बात
हूँ
नहीं
आ
है।
रहा हूँ,
देखो मैं आपको
वो
बताता
तो
हूँ, हम
बात
लोग
अलग है।
जो है अपने लोगों को क्रिटिसाइज करने लग जाते हैं। अरे कोई जाएगा नहीं क्या? हिंदुस्तान का सिटीजन है, जहाँ मर्जी जाएगा वो। ये
तो
कौन
अपने
सी
लोगों
बात
को
हुई कि मैं आ रहा हूँ
क्रिटिसाइज
तो
तो
ये हो
पहले
जाएगा?
करूंगा ना, अपने लोगों को पहले करूंगा। बिना तैयारी का क्यों जाते हो आप लोग?
हाँ, ये बोलो कि
और तो
यार बिना
सुनिए,
तैयारी के
एक
नहीं
चीज
जाओ।
और, एक चीज और तो
जब
सुनो।
मालूम है कि सरकार साथ नहीं देगी, कोई सरकार साथ नहीं देगी, सुन लीजिए आप मेरे से। आप लोग जितना रोते रहिए या बोलते रहिए या मतलब गलत फहमी में रहिए कि बीजेपी साथ देगी, घंटा साथ देगी, ये मेरे से सुन लीजिए। नहीं तो बंगाल का ये हाल नहीं होता। इतने लोग मारे गए, इतने लोग बेघर हुए, बीजेपी वाले आए क्या यहाँ? मरो साले, क्या है, झंडा लगे घूमो, लात खाओ, और क्या।
इसी जगह कांग्रेस होती और कांग्रेस के बंदों का ये हाल हुआ होता तो सेंटर पक्का डंडा कर देता।
अरे इतना सिंपैथी लेती और इतना पूरे देश में दिखाती, विक्टिम कार्ड खेलती, ये खेलती वो खेलती, इतना प्रोपेगेंडा करती। अब हर चीज तो मोदी नहीं कर सकता ना, हर चीज अमित शाह नहीं कर सकता, कुछ स्थानीय लोग का प्रशासन होता है, कुछ अंदर की मैकेनिक वर्किंग होती है, वही चीज ना। और जैसे कि अभी मैं क्या कहने जा रहा था, ये मेवात वाले में था, अगर ये लोग गाड़ी चला रहे हैं, गाड़ी छोड़ छोड़ के भाग रहे हैं, भीड़ आ रही, अरे साले चढ़ा के निकल जाओ जब जाना
तो
ही
वही
है।
तो
अगर भाई पूरा आपको नहीं मालूम है क्या हुआ था, पूरा ये हुआ था कि शायद पूरे वीडियो आपने देखे नहीं है, इनको अपील करी गई थी कि जो लोग ड्राइवर हैं, जो बड़ी गाड़ी चलाते हैं, वो वहां आ जाओ और इनको ट्रैप कर दो बड़ी गाड़ी खड़ी करके रास्ते में। ठीक है, ये कहानी थी यार।
नहीं
अगर
तो
आपको लग रहा है कि ये प्लान नहीं था, पूरी तरीके से प्लान था, गाड़ी लेके
नहीं
नहीं भाग
नहीं
सकते थे।
नहीं नहीं नहीं,
फंसे
ये तो
हुए ट्रैफिक में गाड़ी नहीं
भाई।
चलती है दादा। फंसे हुए ट्रैफिक में आप कार ज्यादा चढ़ा नहीं सकते। जब आपकी कार पैक्ड है, मूवमेंट के लिए जगह ही नहीं है, तो फिर कैसे कार चला पाओगे?
अरे नहीं,
लेडीज
मैंने
बच्चों को लाने का क्या, जब मालूम
मैंने
है
कुछ
कि इस साल,
ऐसे कुछ वीडियो भी देखे थे कि उसमें भीड़ आगे निकल गई है और वो
हाँ, ये
कार वाले
दरवाजे
पीछे
खोलकर
से
भाग
निकल,
रहे हैं।
हाँ दरवाजे खोल भाग रहे हैं और फिर पीछे से निकल के फिर कार पीछे से घुमा के जा रहे हैं। अरे साला घुमा के लाओ, जब आगे निकल गई भीड़ तो चढ़ाते उड़ाते हुए जाओ।
और एक चीज,
जब
ये गुर्जर लोग जब इस साल प्रोटेक्शन नहीं दे पाया, तो बच्चों को और औरतों को लाने का जरूरत क्या था?
और हमको घर वापसी का और समाज को आगे करके घर वापसी के बहुत तेजी से इन सबको प्लान बनवाना चाहिए।
अरे पहले तो ये जितने समाज है भैया, पहले एक तो हो जाओ। सबसे पहला काम करो कि भैया एक हो जाओ, जाति पाति को डिनाउंस कर दो, उसके बाद
तो भी
फिर सब कुछ हो
घर
जाएगा।
क्या
वापसी
डिनाउंस
छोड़ो,
करोगे? आपका बिहार में क्या बोला है ये
घर
आपका
वापसी
पटना
छोड़ो,
हाई
घर
कोर्ट?
के जो
जाति
वापस
पाति में बटे रहो, कास्ट सेंसस
कौन
होने दो। आप क्या
वो
बोल रहे हैं?
नीतीश?
अरे जब हम नहीं मानेंगे तो कोर्ट क्या कर लेगा? हम जात नहीं मान रहे आपस में। कुछ चीजें होती दादा कोर्ट नहीं करता,
देखो
कुछ चीजें जनता को खुद करनी
30%
पड़ती है।
पॉपुलेशन को समझ में आ गया है हिंदुस्तान की कि असल में प्रोपेगेंडा क्या है चल रहा है, क्या है असल में, क्या सही चीज है देश के लिए, क्या सही है। अब 20% की ही मारा मारी है। 20% अगर इधर आ जाए तो ऑल ओवर इंडिया में पूरी सरकार राइट विंग की हो जाएगी, बीजेपी की, या फिर ऑल ओवर 20% अगर उधर चला जाएगा तो उनकी हो जाएगी, क्योंकि उनका भाई 10 से 12%, 15% फिक्स है मुस्लिमों का वोट। तो कहने का मतलब ये है कि जात पात अगर खत्म करनी है तो सबसे पहले जो अग्रणी समाज है, जो मान लो सवर्ण समाज है, उसी को उतरना पड़ेगा, उसी को लीड करना पड़ेगा।
अरे ये सब खुद मैं चाहता हूँ कि मुझे सर्टिफिकेट मिले, तो फिर कैसे आप बंद करवाइएगा? मेरे को फायदा मिल रहा है, आपसे ऊपर जा रहा हूँ मैं क्यों उस मौके को
दादा
छोड़ूं?
कानून यही तो है, ऐसे ही तो बनाए गए हैं कानून,
बस
और
बस
कैसे
हाँ,
बनाए
तो
गए हैं।
कोर्ट भी हवा दे रही है ना, ये नहीं होने वाला खत्म। कोर्ट बोल रहा करो और जाति पाति में बटे रहो और फायदा
अरे
लो इसका दबा कर।
वो चंद चूर्ण के चेले अभी भी बैठे हैं ना, असल में यही तो समस्या है। अभी क्या क्या कर लोगे, अभी तो सिस्टम
अच्छा
तो
वो
उन्हीं लोगों के
अगर भाई थोड़ा सा रुको, मैं एक नए भाई आए हैं, या अगर पुराने हो नाम चेंज करके आए हो,
पुराने ही है
तो
सर,
उनका
हमारे
भी
दोस्त
कमेंट
ही
ले
हैं,
लेता हूँ। हीरोइन का
अमेरिका
कमेंट एक
से
एक
हैं।
मिनट के, हाँ एक एक 2-2 मिनट के कमेंट लेता हूँ, क्योंकि फिर इसको रैप अप करके बैक स्टेज आ जाएंगे, ठीक है? तो जू वालू भाई साहब,
जय श्री राम।
जय श्री राम।
जय श्री राम, जय श्री राम।
आज के बारे में क्या कहना है? आज की जो स्ट्रीम रही उस पे
बाबा कार चला रहे लगता है ना?
क्या क्या है?
अगर
अब
आज
ड्राइव
की
कर रही
स्ट्रीम पे
है
कुछ
ना?
कमेंट है? आज की जो स्ट्रीम है उस पर कुछ कमेंट है, फिर आज इसका करने के बाद बैक स्टेज में फिर बाकी बात करेंगे, अगर कोई बात होगी तो।
मैंने बहुत अच्छी की आपने स्ट्रीम, बस आपके दर्शकों को यही निवेदन है, चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कीजिए, ज्वाइन करें और शेयर कीजिए और कीजिए, क्योंकि ज्ञान ही एक सबसे बड़ा सोर्स है जो लोगों को जागरूक कर सकता है कि समाज में क्या हो रहा है।
जी हिरोन में भाई आज के बारे में कुछ कहना है आज की स्ट्रीम पे, तो फटाफट कमेंट्स दे दो।
सर कमेंट तो ये है कि ये जो टू नेशन थियरी वो मतलब शायद उसका नाम क्या है, मैं बोल रहा हूँ उसका नाम, सैयद अहमद खान के लिए ही, उससे पहले से ही, जब से भारत में वो क्या कहते हैं इस्लाम आया है तब से ही है। इन लोगों को ये अकल नहीं है कि मतलब ये लोग ये सभी जितने भी भारत में जितने भी मोमिन हैं उन सबको पता होना चाहिए कि उनके माता हिंदू थे और उनके पिता आक्रांता थे। ये बात उन सबके दिमाग में घुस नहीं रहा।
ठीक है प्रोफेसर साहब,
क्या बात किया यार हिरन, मैंने तो 2 बात किया, दोनों ठीक कहा। आज पहली बार दोनों पॉइंट आपका बिल्कुल सच है, वाह, अप्रिशिएट।
जी निखिल भाई।
आज मेरे आईडी पे मैंने लिखा हिंदू, इंडिया, पाकिस्तान, बांग्लादेश, कश्मीर, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा, मेवात, हरियाणा, केरल, मध्य प्रदेश, भोपाल, झांसी, वाराणसी, सोमनाथ और भी नासिक, औरंगाबाद, इतने शब्द मैंने नाम ले लिए हैं, हैदराबाद। तो इसके बाद अब थोड़े जनता समाज जो सुन रही है, अगर अभी भी आंख बंद करके बैठे हो तो हरिओम, शांति शांति शांति, बाकी जो होगा चलता रहेगा। अब जागना चाहिए जनता को, नहीं जागते हो। और हाँ, जुडिशरी जो है इनका जो लॉलीपॉप है, अभी आप देखेंगे आपके जुडिशरी के जो माय लॉर्ड है, माय लॉर्ड अभी मणिपुर के नाम पे रो रहे हैं। तो मणिपुर पे क्या है, उनकी जो जन्मजात गर्लफ्रेंड है जो जिनको बिलोंग करते हो, उसका 1-2 शायद बंदा निपट गया होगा। तो बस उनको इन मर्डर से फर्क नहीं पड़ता, अंतर नहीं आएगा इससे कुछ उनको, किंतु उनका 1-2 वहाँ पे कुछ प्रोटेस्ट हो रहा है, सो कॉल्ड कन्वर्टेड के अगेंस्ट कुछ बात हो रही है, तो उनके फाइल्स प्रॉब्लम में एकदम से वृद्धि हो गई है और वो वहीं के नाम पे सरकार को घेरने के लिए नाटक कर रहे हैं। तो माय लॉर्ड का जो जस्टिस इंडिया है अपने, ये कश्मीर, मोपल्ला ऐसे नरसंहार हो गए, तब इनके प्रॉब्लम क्या आ जाती है। और ये भारत की जनता को, बीजेपी को मैं नतमस्तक हूँ कि इन्होंने ये चीज़ें एक्सपोज करी हैं। लोग कहते थे कि नेहरू जी और कौन थे, वल्लभ भाई जी के समय पर कॉन्स्पिरेसीज होती थी, बट कॉन्स्पिरेटर्स मेन कौन थे? तो आज जो जस्टिस सिस्टम है ये बहुत बड़ा कॉन्स्पिरेटर्स है, ये भी क्लियर हुए हैं। इन्हें भी अब जनता को सोचना समझना चाहिए, अगर शो कॉज नोटिस देना आरंभ करना चाहिए। योगी आदित्यनाथ जी ने शो कॉज नोटिस देना आरंभ कर दिया है, जनता भी सीखे, बाकी नेता भी सीखे। और एक इसमें अपडेट और देता हूँ, आपकी जो घटना हुई है मेवात में, इसमें किसी बीजेपी नेता ने हिंदू संगठनों के ऊपर ही उंगली कर दी है।
अरे
तो
वो
उस बीजेपी,
कांग्रेस का दलाल है, कांग्रेस में
जो
था,
है,
हाँ कांग्रेस में था, फिर बीजेपी में भी आ गया था।
तो इसके स्टेटमेंट से आप पूरी बीजेपी को बुरा ना मानिएगा, क्योंकि बीजेपी को भी कई जगह चुनाव जीतने के लिए ऐसे छर्रे रखना पड़ता है, ये ऐसी बाइयां रखनी पड़ती हैं, बात में फिर नाटक करती है, तो चलता है ऐसा होगा। ये ऐसे मतलब मैं शब्द यूज नहीं करूंगा, कुछ जगह सीटों को मैनेज करने के लिए ऐसे कुछ रखना पड़ता है, तो उसको मैं, पर किंतु ओवरऑल जो बीजेपी का स्पेक्ट्रम है हेल्पफुल है पूरे अपने कम्युनिटी के लिए, प्लस बट वो हेल्पफुल है, बस कर्म आपको करना है, हेल्पफुल रहेगा।
पाठक जी, आपकी इसी लाइन में मैं एक चीज ऐड करना चाहूंगा, हमें बीजेपी की ही तरह इससे और ज्यादा हार्ड लाइनर 1-2 और पार्टी चाहिए, हिंदू हार्ड लाइनर, और उनकी पकड़ जैसे आपके एमपी स्टेट में होनी चाहिए, छत्तीसगढ़ में, ताकि वहाँ मुस्लिम का वोट का चक्कर ही ना हो। 5-6% है, क्या उखाड़ लेंगे वो लोग 5-6%? इस तरह करके इन स्टेटमेंट में रहनी चाहिए प्रेजेंट, और वहां पे बिल्कुल एंटी मुस्लिम स्टेटमेंट दें, उखाड़ लो जिसको जो उखाड़ना हो,
अभी
ताकि
इनको एक बात चल रही थी, बीजेपी और आरएसएस का जो सबसे बड़ा फोकस रहता है, मेन चीज, वो इतने सॉफ्ट हार्ट पर्सन क्यों है? क्योंकि वसुधैव कुटुंबकम को वो सत्यता से जानते हैं, उस पर कार्य करते हैं। पर ये भी देखना चाहिए कि आप घर वापसी करोगे तो मुश्किल से, पूरे भयंकर इन्वेस्ट करोगे तो मुश्किल से 20-50 हजार के घर वापसी कराओगे, और घर वापसी कराओगे तो वसीम रिजवी दादा ऐसे रोते रहेंगे। तो घर वापसी ठीक है, पर अब आपको जो घर के बंदे हैं उन्हें तो जोड़ो, हमारे घर के ही जो बालक हैं, घर के
जी
जो
जी
समाज
जी
है,
जी
घर के जो बड़े हैं, अब इन्हीं को तो इंटीग्रेट करो, इनके अंदर फॉल्ट लाइन जो गैप है उनको खत्म करो ना, क्या प्रॉब्लम है? अभी भी
इसी में
हमारे
मैं
यहाँ,
आ रहा था, इसी में मैं
आप
आ
जो
रहा था
बताए,
कि हमें
जी जी,
अपने जितनी जल्दी हो टेम्पल फ्री करा लेने चाहिए, जितनी जल्दी हो सके। अगर
जी
टेम्पल
हाँ,
फ्री हो
और एक
जाएंगे
मिनट
तो
अगर भाई,
जी
अभी मैं रोक देता हूँ थोड़ा सा, आपने जो बात करी वो ले ली टेम्पल फ्री, बाकी बैकएंड में लेते हैं।
जी
आ,
जी
हमारे एएम दादा जो है वो पढ़ने में ही बिजी रहे, कमेंट नहीं दिया, तो अब कमेंट एएम दादा का लेता हूँ, फिर शॉर्ट सा कमेंट बीबी दादा का होगा, और फिर हम बैक स्टेज चले जाएंगे इसको
आप
रैप
तो
अप
बता
करके।
ही दिए हैं कि मतलब आज का नहीं है, शुरू से इनका स्ट्रैटेजी, जो मैं विंडोज का उदाहरण दे करके मजाक कर रहा था ना, वही चीज है। मतलब इनका स्ट्रैटेजी सही है, चेंज नहीं हुआ है। हम ही लोग जो है आगे पीछे बाएं दाएं ऊपर नीचे सोचते रहते हैं, सोचते सोचते कुछ करते भी नहीं है, इसलिए मार खा रहे हैं। और क्या, स्ट्रैटेजी हमें बदलनी चाहिए।
ठीक है
जी
बीबी
बिल्कुल सही
दादा,
कहा है एम दादा।
अगर बैकग्राउंड में आपके नॉइस नहीं है तो आप कमेंट दे दीजिए, क्योंकि आज आपको ना तो पढ़ने का ही टाइम मिला और ना कमेंट देने का। बीबी दादा,
वो शायद नहीं है।
चल दादा बिजी होंगे तो
हाँ
एएम
वो
दादा ने भी,
उनको मतलब संभाल रहे हैं।
ठीक है कोई नहीं। तो अभी एएम दादा ने भी कमेंट दे दिया, स्ट्रेटजी सेम है, कंक्लूजन यही निकलता है। ठीक है, ये पूरा टू नेशन थ्योरी जो है वो एज इट इज वैसे ही चल रही है।
भाई टू नेशन
दारुल
थियरी उनका
दारुल
वो इनका बड़ा किताब में,
हाँ
बड़ा
हाँ,
किताब जब
दारुल
से है तभी से
दारुल
वो।
इस्लाम दारुल हरब है, ये टू नेशन थ्योरी का बेसिकली वो कॉन्सेप्ट है, जो कि रिलीजियस बुक्स में से आ रहा है, मेन रिलीजियस बुक में से। ठीक है, नहीं तो बाकी तो वो छः जो है वो सही सत्ता वगैरह ले लोगे, नहीं नहीं, मेन बुक में से सही सत्ता में भी है। तो यहाँ पे अभी इसको हम रैप अप करेंगे, और मैं जो है अपने ऑडियंस का धन्यवाद करना चाहूँगा, जिन्होंने अपना समय दिया, अपने पैनलिस्ट को भी धन्यवाद कहूँगा जो हमें समय दे रहे हैं। और इसके अलावा जो है रिक्वेस्ट करूँगा अपने जो है ऑडियंस एंड पैनलिस्ट बोथ से, कि इस जो है कंटेंट को लाइक करें, शेयर करें, सब्सक्राइब करें। लेंथी ज़रूर होता है, इंफॉर्मेटिव लेकिन होता है, तो धीर गंभीर लोगों के लिए है ये कंटेंट। इसको प्लीज़ लाइक करें, शेयर करें, सब्सक्राइब करें, बेल आइकन प्रेस कर ले अगर नहीं करा है, नोटिफिकेशंस ऑन कर लें, ऑल नोटिफिकेशंस। कमेंट ज़रूर दें आने वाले कंटेंट को, कैसा कंटेंट देखना चाहते हैं, और इसी के साथ हम इसका समापन करते हैं। अगले अध्याय के साथ पुनः प्रस्तुत होंगे। जय हिंद, वंदे मातरम, भारत माता की जय।
जय हिंद,
जी
वंदे
जय
मातरम।
हिंद।
हर हर महादेव।